Hello and welcome to round 5 of the Zwift Racing Premier Division. It is the penultimate round of the season. Competition for the overall title is scorching hot in both the men's and the women's series, and so we will undoubtedly have a fantastic night of racing in store for you again. We're back in the Mercury Islands taking on the Temples and Towers course, which includes both 2 tarmac climbs and a very tough gravel climb up to the eponymous temple. It is likely to be very selective indeed. Here with me to analyse all the action, I'm delighted to be joined once again by Hannah Walker. Good evening, Hannah.
Good evening, Si. Great to see you back.
Well, yeah, absolutely right. The Vuelta Valenciana caused quite a stir with its gravel sector in real life this last week. Now the ZRL is back with its own gravel sector, which blew up the final round of last season. It's not a summit finish this time, but are you expecting more fireworks in the dirt tonight?
Certainly am. Certainly am. I think if last season was anything to go by, of course, we had the summit finish last time, but if it was anything to go by, it caused excitement. The fans loved it. I think the riders loved the aspect of racing on the gravel, having that uncertainty going from the sort of smooth tarmac to the gravel. I don't know about you, but I certainly loved it too.
I did, except when I raced it the next day, and then it was really, really hard. Right, so the men are racing first this evening, so let's remind ourselves with what happened last week. Team time trial was something of an upset in the results.
What depth to finish with 5 riders here in France. That is a sweet ride here. Hopefully they were all able to pitch in and play their 20% roll evenly, as this one is now done and dusted for Sarah's no pins.
What can this squad do? They have dominated so far. They round the final corner. They are 5 strong. They cross the line. Blanket finish for the team with a 100% record. Saris No Pins are the winners of the team time trial here in France, breaking the stranglehold the next have had. Absolutely sensational stuff.
So, the mighty, the unbeatable Next Esports, powered by Insured, toppled after their 9-round winning streak. Saris No Pins taking it with the victory, just 3 seconds ahead of BZR Sport Solid, who won a 10-second intermediate time bonus, and then pushing them really closely. Still, their second place was never in doubt, time bonus or not. They were 13 seconds ahead of Next, with Canyon Esports just behind in 4th, and Movistar rounding out the top 5. In the overall, Next do still have a commanding lead though, 10 points ahead of Canyon, who'll be ruining their poor round 3 performance. BZR are just 1 point behind, ruining their round 3 performance even more. Kalash just 1 point behind them, but a comfortable distance ahead of Saris No Pins, who catapult their way now into 5th with last week's victory. Well, it had to happen at some point, but still, Hannah, was it a surprise to see Next not winning, and do we know why they got rolled?
I think it is a surprise because we're so used to seeing them for the last nine rounds in straight over season 1 and season 2. However, that being said, a 3rd place, realistically, is still a fantastic result, and it's a completely different discipline or type of event, let's say, as opposed to the road races where they really excel, the points races. Still a strong result. They still have that incredible 10-point buffer, which is really exceptional with only 2 rounds remaining.
Yeah, well, as you said, the team time trial is a unique event on Zwift and in real life as well. It relies, of course, on power and fitness, but also tactics and communication. And here, with teams separated by continents and oceans at times, well, how do they do it? We've got a sneak peek inside the virtual team cars of the Movistar women's team and the victorious Saris No Pins men's team.
Yeah, we just need to communicate with each other, and if one of us is feeling like not so good or really good, then just say
3, 2, 1, go. Yeah, make sure that you're all sticking in a group. Get onto Anna's wheel. Let everything settle down. Okay, Hayley pulling off in 3, 2, 1, and Becky coming through.
Yeah, that's what you want. You want that opportunity to rest and recover after you've done your turn on the front. And if you do get it right, it just makes for a very, very effective fighting force.
Pulling off in 3, 2, 1, Becky coming through.
More about Beth McKeither because she is flying up this climb. Beth McKeither using her devastating turn of speed to good effect. And as you said, because she's opened up a little bit of a lead, so much of a lead, she will have an opportunity on this slightly downhill section, Hannah, to recover a bit as long as she picks up the momentum just as the team joins her, because she doesn't want to get spat out the back.
Great riding. Be smart with your recovery. Sitting on the wheels. If you're both feeling good, we'll do a minute for Becky, a minute for Beth. Okay, you've got 30 seconds left, Becky. Keep it strong, keep it together. Really nice work. Full 30 seconds, Beth. Coming through in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, big effort. Come on, jump round. Well, make sure that you're stuck to her like glue. Third across the line, remember. Come on, Anna.
But Makiva, nothing is stopping her. She's still got the power in the legs to cross the line first.
Movistar crossed the line there. Now it is the turn of the men. Same course, same route, same location. So it is bonjour because we're in Douce, France.
Get excited, dudes. This is going to be fun.
Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose, right, my good friends? Let's rock it!
David Talbot, Ryan Larson, Eric Levinson, John Jansen. It looks like it's West in there for Cameron Cogburn today.
You guys are flying. This is perfect.
Check 1, 8:40. Check 2 was 16:09. They are the fastest team out on the course.
Hey, come on, guys.
I've never seen pink and white move so fast.
Come on, guys.
This one is now done and dusted for Sarah Snowpins.
That's what I'm talking about.
Holy guys, that was insane.
Well, it's got to be said, Hannah, I was quite surprised by that, in that there was less communication from the team managers than I thought there might be. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, one thing that stuck out to me was how calm they both were. Less so towards the finish line for Sarah Snowpins, with that encouragement for the guys. However, yeah, they're calm, precise, clear instructions of what they want the riders to do, and even little things to remind them, you know, just make sure you stick to the wheel like glue. You know, don't let the gaps open up. I think it's when you're in a world of pain and you're suffering at that point, just having those easy instructions really helps you focus and be able to do the job.
Yeah, very calming indeed, wasn't it? We should actually say that we took out the rider's audio from that, mainly because at 190 beats per minute and at 500 watts plus, they don't offer much other than really heavy breathing, which we didn't feel was all that appropriate. And the other thing we should say actually is that you hear your DS a lot more clearly, don't you, in Zwift, as opposed to in real life, where you basically can't hear much from the team car, can you at all?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. OK then, let's move on to this week, shall we? And we'll start by checking out the course. Temples and Towers is in the Mercury Islands and starts in downtown Neokyo. At 33.13 kilometres long, it's something of a middle distance race, and so should see some really attacking racing, particularly from the climbing oriented riders, as all 3 sprint points are located at the arches at the top of the climbs. The first is the rooftop climb, which comes after just 3.4k and ramps up slowly for 1.8 kilometres, and there's a maximum of 10 points on offer at the top. The race then leaves the futuristic urban landscape of Neokyo and heads for the country. After 15.2k, the riders face the castle climb. At 2.5k long, it's a sterner test, and riders can earn a maximum of 20 points at the top there. Crucially, there was also no descent afterwards, just a few k of flat tarmac before the grueling temple climb. 2.5k long, but on slow, energy-sapping gravel, and there's a whopping 30 points on offer at the top there. Then there's about 10k left to race before the traditional 50 points on offer for the winner. 3 power-ups are available, Aero and Burrito helping riders break away, and also the Steamroller, which makes a huge difference on the gravel sector. Well, the talk of the town when the riders faced this gravel sector last time was whether or not there should be bike changes. Hannah, what do you think this time? Bike changes or no?
I was umming and ahhing for a while, trying to think of what the tactics might be for teams, riders, what they'll go with. I think it depends on the situation on the road, but I'm leaning more towards no, there won't be any bike changes this time. The only way there might be is if a rider is solo at that point, they have enough time to make the change, to do it swiftly without any problems, and then have the benefits of having the gravel bike. If you are sort of on the cusp of just getting dropped. I think you're better trying to stay in the wheels as much as possible and try and finish and get a good finishing position. Of course, the points still go down to 30th position come the finish line. So I think it's a tricky one, what teams will do, but I think it does depend on the scenario and depends on the power-ups as well that they have.
Well, that's it. The steamroller power-up is super effective. You've also got to say, haven't you, that last time they only had to change bikes once because it finished at the top, whereas this time I suppose they'd have to change twice, which is probably a nail in the coffin for that tactic, I guess. Now, at the top of the show, I laid my cards out and said, I think this might be a really selective race. Do you agree? Please say you agree as our expert.
I do, actually. I do. With the 3 KOMs, all very different, especially the Castle KOM. It's sort of in 2 parts. It's like relatively flat, it's quite rolling, and then you get to that second part of the King of the Mountain, and it's a lot more difficult. I think it's going to be a lot more selective, and I think throughout the whole of tonight's race, it's going to be a whittling down process. I don't think it's going to be necessarily a race where riders are going off the front, but more riders are struggling to stay in the bunch. They're going out the back, and it's whittled down all the way to the finish, and that final KOM, 10Ks from the finish, certainly going to do some damage.
Yeah, Zwift Racing is like a washing machine. Once it's on, there's no going out the front. You can only go out the back. Right then, we are nearly ready to hand over to Dave and Matt in the commentary booth for the men's race. But before we go, let's take a close look at a couple of teams. Those currently fighting for second place overall, with just 1 point separating them. BZR Sport Solid Le Col, first of all, led by Leonard Turgles. Their big name rider, isn't he, basically? And he is back now. I think the one race that he didn't do, they dropped to 9th. But he's something of a solid point scorer, wouldn't you say?
He certainly is. He's almost the master of the breakaway, isn't he? And he's a really valuable rider for the team. They're also missing Matteo De Roos tonight, so another big name for the BZR Sports Solid.
Well, that's right, because De Roos won this round, didn't he, last season? But this could be made for Turgles, do you think, with that selective climb?
Potentially it could. I mean, he won back in Harrogate in season 1. That had a lot of elevation in it. And I think with his aggressive style of racing and not afraid to attack, it could certainly go into his hands.
Yeah, and then Canyon Esports, they've obviously got their 2 big hitters, Ollie Jones and Lionel Vujasin. Lionel, we know, is going for the Worlds, isn't he? He wants that rainbow jersey. So you'd think he'd be coming into form now, because it's not long till we get to the Worlds.
And with the Worlds having a lot of elevation, a lot of climbing in it, we're starting to go into those courses which really start to suit Lionel Vujasin, actually. He's not an out-and-out sprinter. The courses that we've had in the previous few weeks haven't been his bread and butter, and the next 2 rounds tonight certainly should be right up his street.
Yeah, right then. Well, it is time to head over to Matt Stevens and Dave Toll in the commentary booth. The racers are in the pen and waiting patiently for the flag to drop, ready for 33.13 kilometres of the finest pavement and dirt that Mercury Islands has to offer. Who will win? We do not have long to wait. Over to you guys.
Thank you very much indeed, Simon. Thank you, Hannah. I cannot wait to get this race underway. There it is. We are back in the Mercury Islands. It is the Temples and Towers route, the biggest, the longest route in the Mercury Islands. Elevation gain, 320 metres. Total distance today, 33.13 Ks. We've got the Aero power-up, the Burrito power-up, and the Steamroller, which we're seeing for the very first time this season. Lots of points on offer as well at the Rooftop KOM, the Castle KOM, and the Temple KOM. Alongside me is, the world-recognised only human power-up available, and that is Mr. Dave Toll. Dave, great to have you alongside me. Round 5, getting towards the back end of what has been a spectacular season. This race should be an absolute corker.
That absolutely made my day. What a way to start things as the riders are going to be heading out on course. Matt, it's always great to be with you. So, today's course and the structure of the racing here, this template is the new school ZRL, and I love it as we're going to be looking at this group heading out. Time for the regulators to mount up. It's going to be a big day, expected to be an aggressive day of racing. We can talk about the point structure leading up to the finale. 50 points waiting at that line, but Matt, only 3.5K in. They're already going to be contesting out here. As here we are in Neokyo, starting in the night, racing into the day.
We are indeed. We are in the, the Neokyo's Perma Night, as we like to call it, for the first few kilometres, as you said, Dave, and then move out into the beautiful countryside, and then head over the 3 climbs, and then drop back, and we actually finish back in the nighttime of Neokyo as well. So really interesting feel to this race. Nighttime, back into the day, back into the night again. So almost, Dave, as if we're crossing different time zones. Add to the mix that these riders are riding in different time zones as well, a real global feel. But I'm looking forward to seeing how this one pans out. And as you said, we've got 3 significant climbs today, the first of which offers up points for the first 5 riders across the line, and then the points double as we go through. So as the race gets deeper and deeper, the final climb of the day up the Temple KOM, there's 30 points on offer, and that one is on gravel. So we'll discuss that a little bit later, Dave. Will we see teams perhaps dedicating one rider to jump on a gravel bike, for example, and go for the points? We just don't know. I mean, we've seen it happen before, but it is only a very short period of time on the gravel. As we look, Dave, at a first glimpse of a rider in picture, that's Stefan van Elst.
Even though he didn't take the start here today, I remember Matthias de Roos winning a countryside at the end of last season. He used a road bike. I don't think the risk-reward ratio pays off on that, Matt, going back to your comment about changing bikes out here. I know some riders will, and certainly the way things have gone this season, knowing things can go just any direction out here, they'll probably prove me wrong. You know what team I'm looking at today, Matt? And actually, this is a perfect time to mention that they're starting in the orange jersey today, an alternate jersey from the blue that we usually see with Movistar. So that explains the orange jersey that you're seeing. That's just a note here. And actually, expect to see that orange jersey in the finale. Now, it's also worth noting, Matt, it's about 10K after the Temple climb, where there are 30 points for the first rider over the line, 20 for second and 15 for third. That's almost like an old school ZRL. That's almost like a finish line there.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of points, and that's really helped just elevate the action out here. I see David Talbot's name popping up. Sarah Snowpins had a phenomenal ride last week. Talbot, Ryan Larson, Tyler West. Watch out for these guys as well. They've got to have some wind in their sails after last week's team time trial win, Matt. Peloton sitting together here as we're going to start approaching rooftop. Here we go. First points on offer. It's going to be at Donnybrook here as we get things started.
Yep, this is the climb that we saw in the opening round, and I think it was Leonard Turgles who took the points that time. Different point structure, and they've got no power-ups at the moment. It's worth mentioning they haven't passed through any arches at all just yet, so the first opportunity for the riders to grab a power-up will be through this arch. So it's all about pure power up this climb, although it's not a particularly steep one. The length of this climb, 1.9 kilometers, only 2.7% average gradient, but there are a few slightly steeper kicks, but it's a low gradient because there are a few flatter sections. But we've got one rider just clipped off the front there, Jakob Björklund of Team Swedish Swifters. Dave has opened up a little bit of a lead. Hopefully he doesn't end up on the rail tracks, those trains heading towards him. But an interesting little move, and has got a lead on the lower slopes here of 2.3 seconds.
Mind the gap, as they say. As we have a look, we were just with Zach Naird winning the Continental Qualifier. A lot of these riders, Matt, this moves us into World Championship season, to tell you the truth. The Esports World Championships with the UCI and Zwift is coming up this month, really only a few weeks away. So they're going to be sharpening the sword. This is going to be Jakob Björklund that we're looking at. This is definitely a move for the points. There was a little kicker that they went over before they move into the proper rooftop KOM, and this is going to get absolutely swarmed. Some hungry wolves out here. Look at the Aero team out of Australia, Matt. All the Aussies looking like they're back in the mix. We're looking at Jakob right now here in screen.
We are indeed. First time I think we've had him picture in picture. Good to see. Back down in the saddle. And only a brief foray up the front there, so a good little move by him, but that's been snuffed out very, very quickly. Just heading towards the top part of this climb. This is where it gets quite complicated in terms of the actual route. There's lots of lefts and rights, not even really hairpins, just 90-degree lefts and rights. They're heading towards the top of the climb now. It goes around a couple of bends. The actual finish line only comes in sight within the last 50 meters or so. So we should get, don't forget, we are not going to see any power-ups being dropped. We use the indicator that we're going to cross the line for any sprint before a KOM is a flurry of power-ups. We will not see this at the top of this climb as we get our first glimpse of Ben Hill as we get towards the top of this climb, Dave.
It's really sneaky. There's no doubt about it. Having done your recon out here makes a massive difference as we take a look at a peloton that has a tremendous amount of depth here as well. This is really, for these guys, almost nothing here as we're, again, Rooftop, Castle, and Temple. They become significantly more important as we make our way through this 33 kilometers of racing. It's not going to be a long race today, but it's going to be a very, very intense race, Matt. Back to the front, you can see a real mix of teams, but no one trying to really assert their authority right now. Again, though, look at Movistar today and the depth that this squad has. It's going to make a big, big difference when we tally up the points. You can see the Irishman racing out of Northern Ireland there. Moving over to a new team is Christopher McGlinchey, and man, was he a solid pickup. Everyone's still, though, Grupo Compacto right now, just 4.2K in, Matt.
Yep, Leonard Turgle's just drifted to the front, keeping himself in a good position. 144 beats a minute for the Belgian, although that's starting to increase now as we get towards the top of this climb. We've got about 600 meters approximately start to go. Turgle's just got pipped at the line last time up. There you go. That's the countdown to the top of this climb. Things are starting to hot up. It's Paul Oldlin now who's accelerated clear. 10.5 watts a kilo for Oldlin of the world of elite Zwifters. He's managed to open up very, very quickly indeed. A gap of 1.8 seconds as he flies towards the top of this Neokio climb. Good move here by Oldlin, Dave.
Yeah, the usual suspects when you talk about attacking early in the race. And actually, at any point in the race, Paul has been phenomenal throughout this entire season. Does he have enough in the tank right now? He's still hanging at 9 watts per kilo here. It's going to be interesting because they will rush the finish here. Points scoring 10 for the first rider over the line, 5 for second, 3 for third. It only scores 5 deep. Fifth rider picking up 1 point. Again, if we had a most consistently aggressive rider, Leonard Tugels, Paul Oldlin, it would be one of those two, no doubt about it. This New Zealander's been a force to be reckoned with, but you can see it's going to be, I believe that's Pio Otto or restart. It's going to be Pio Otto with Lisson coming over the top, but next is right there, and Zach Nair, I believe, will take top points, grabbing 10 points, it looks like.
Well, there we go. It was Oya who actually took the points there for Team Swedish Zwifters. Björklund in second place. That was very, very close indeed. We'll get confirmation of that, so we will get confirmation of the points in a few moments' time as a couple of riders get their power-ups and utilize them immediately. That's the burrito power-up, which of course disables the draft from anybody within a 2.5 meter radius for a period of 10 seconds. A couple of riders using that immediately because we'll be going through the next climb. There's a bit of a gap now until the next climb. The next climb is out in the countryside. That's the Castle KOM, 15.2 Ks. Dave, talk us through this replay, because that was very, very close indeed. Such a complex climb in terms of timing it to perfection here, Dave. Just talk us through these last few meters.
Yeah, they've already swarmed to Oldlin right now, and you could see that Lisson looked like he was in good shape, but I believe that is Zach Nair coming across. He's on a roll right now, and we talk about World Championships coming up. This is a man that is primed, and at this point, this next 3 weeks, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of a result Nair has at the finish line today, because I got to think he's in it to win it. So taking a look at everything coming back together here, now they'll tally those points. Again, 10 points going to next. They've got to be a little bit hungrier after what happened last week. First time in the last 10 races that they did not take the win. You don't want to poke the bear, Matt. I think that's maybe a little bit of what's going on here. Is they're going to respond? Certainly, and it's always a team of the highest quality. But taking a look at this group now, no one team wants to push all their chips into the middle of the table here. As you said, it's a long, flat run at this point. As a matter of fact, I think everyone's going to sit back a little bit here. I was looking at riders to watch today. Nicky Hoog comes to mind for me, the Swiss rider on next. And certainly by the time we get to that temple climb, we're going to find out who really came to race out here. Lionel Viasen and Ollie Jones on Canyon. They're really in a battle right now, Matt. And I start wondering, at what point do these two teams, talking about BZR, Sports Solid, that's the all-Belgian team, and Canyon, do they start racing against each other rather than trying to take down next? At what point do they start racing for the silver medals? They're sitting 10 points behind right now, with only, even with double points and everything we're looking at next week. I have a feeling these two teams are really in a stare-down match for the second place spot. There's a lot of prestige and, to be honest, money that comes with finishing second in the league.
Yep, there's, as you say, there is a lot to play for. A lot of these riders just dropping the steamroller here, which reduces the rolling resistance for 30 seconds. A lot of riders getting rid of that now because it's not necessarily, well, that won't actually make any difference, actually, because when you're riding on concrete with tyres, it just is a way of getting rid of it. But that is the power up that you want when you are on the gravel sector, because there's so much extra drag. That's why we saw riders last season. Remember, we went up the climb, the temple climb, on 3 occasions, so it was a far more obvious option to actually go for a gravel bike. But the steamroller is what you want to actually change your rolling resistance back to normal roads on the temple KOM climb, and also over the top of the temple KOM climb, because remember, it's not just the 1.9 kilometers of the climb, there's another 1.5 kilometers over the top as well. So we're looking at 3.5 to 4 Ks of gravel. So that is when the that particular power up will come into its own. And there's the aforementioned Nicky Haag rolling to the front here. And I think because we have got this big gap between the first and second climbs, and I think the intensity is going to be really ratcheted up later on, I think this will be the only opportunity for riders, as you said, Dave, to rest up. But there we go. It was indeed Zach Nair with 10, Ollie Jones in second there with 5, Leeson and Schweber third and fourth respectively, and then Ben Hill rounding out the 5th place rider there with a solitary point for the Aero team. And it is the Aero team, along with Beast Mode powered by Rose, Team Italy, Dave, and Velocio. They are the teams at the moment looking at the drop zone.
Next, Matt has traditionally not been that concerned with the crumbs on the table and waited for the main course to be served. I think that they're really going to come out full, just absolutely charging it. This is another attack that we're looking at now. I believe that this is going to be World Elite Zwifters that we've got in Paul Odlin again. Just absolutely relentless. This man throws body blow after body blow out here. And even if it doesn't pick it up, this is certainly going to mix things up, shuffle the deck behind him right now. We're going to find out what teams are ready to start chasing this one back. We're still quite a ways away from the castle climb, so this is more of a long-range break here, Matt, that we're trying to see instigated.
Yeah, it's got on these flat roads. I mean, Odlin is clearly feeling very good. We know he is one of the most aggressive riders out there. I'm not too sure if this necessarily was a proper tactic, or it's just one of those moves because he's feeling so good that he's just riding on feel. But he has managed to drag a couple of little riders, a small breakaway, 5 or 6 riders started to form, but that has been snuffled out very quickly indeed. So, yeah, very quickly indeed. So we're 10 kilometers already under the wheels of these riders, 23 kilometers to go, but still the Castle KOM and the Temple KOM, which do clumb very close together indeed. We've got to go through the Umezi tunnel, and that will link Nyokio to the outside countryside. But a few riders detached already just off the back of this group, but a very fast little move there. But nobody at the moment, Dave, has been allowed to force themselves clear.
Can you imagine if we got Paul Odlin and Leonard Tugels in attack together? That would certainly be interesting, as they're both on different sides of the world. Tugels racing out of Belgium. He certainly has been just a phenomenal part of the entertainment element of the ZRL. But they've brought everything back into the fold here as we take a look at teams. I think starting to prepare, though, as this is Alex Tenselhoff that we're looking at. Wahoo Lacole is a team that's moved themselves into contention for a top 5 or better this season. This is another team, Matt, that has a great trajectory, a really good vibe, and I love the fact that they've got a women's team that is on the charge right now as well. Tenselhoff moving up right to the front there as you can see the blue and purple jersey of Wahoo Lacole. It looks like they might have something up their sleeve at this point, Matt. They're starting to organize a little bit here.
It looks like Tenselhoff is either in I don't know, the bridge of a spaceship or a discotheque, given that kind of lighting he's got there. We've got 12 ride-ons for the American rider, and I'm going to do the thing that I normally do about 10 or 11 Ks into a race, and I'm going to ask you, everybody that's watching, get involved in the comments underneath this video, and please do fire up your companion apps and give these riders a ride on. It's easy to do, and it's about getting in the mix. This is all about involvement with the community too. You are a part of this as much as the races. We wouldn't do this without you, and it is good to see. Normally we get a nice reaction. I can just see most of the riders within the field. I've got pretty bulging pockets now as Odlin has started to attack again. This man is on fire. He is like the Duracell bunny as we head back out into the countryside, Dave, back out into the beautiful sunshine here in the Makuri Islands. Odlin is unstoppable today. 2-second lead for the rider from that squad.
It's almost like he's peppering this field or softening them up. This is going to be Frederick Muff coming forward. Now, we're going to see how they respond here. Now, this World Elite Zwifters team, this is the team that Takato Ikeda moved over to, the Japanese rider who could be very, very good on the temple climb. It's going to be really, really exciting. And Paul Odlin is certainly stirring the pot right now. Martin Lindqvist coming up to cover. Vidar Mel, remembering again that orange jersey is what they're racing in today for the Movistar team. These are some of the names that you certainly will see eyebrows being raised around the world. Howell Davies coming forward now. This is going to be interesting here. They are really, really flying out here, Matt, already with 12.3K into this race. And again, another surge coming out of the peloton here, getting ready for the castle climb. Let's quickly look at the points here as they basically double and go a little bit deeper. So 20 points, 10 and 8 for the first 3 riders over the line. This one scores 6 deep. Castle climb coming up.
Dave, these riders have gone clear, Dave. These 9 riders have moved clear. So that little split, that little gravel section, there was a short gravel section which essentially sewed these 2 courses together, only of about 300 or 400 meters. And Frederick Muff is accelerating on the front of this group. He's got Ole Zilse with him of Beast Mode, Vidar Mel of Movistar, Martin Lindqvist of Team Swedish Swifters, Hewell Davis is there, Vidar Mel and Paul Odlin. This is a powerful group who have now got 4 seconds, Dave, over the chase behind. That clearly was a key move to ride really hard through the gravel, because that's where you get that added roller resistance. And if you weren't prepared for it, it could have come as a bit of a shock. So an interesting split, interesting development with still 20 Ks to go, Dave.
It's such an interesting formula, Matt. I love this. This is the new ZRL. This is the highest level of racing in esports. And right now you can see this mix of teams. Now, it's a close jersey as far as the color there, but those are 2 different teams, Restart and PO Auto. World Elite Zwifters has Paul Odlin. Paul Odlin certainly earns. He was the fuse that lit the bomb that is this breakaway. Luco Vergalito having a great ride for the Italian squad. This is a big moment for them. The Swedish Swifters are represented. David Talbot is there. Zils is there for the German Beast Mode team. So this break is very dangerous. Now, certainly they're going to stay away and pick up the points. And Matt, I think what I like about this breakaway is it's a mix of 9 different teams that won't be chasing. So with only 15 teams in this league, that puts a lot of pressure on those 6 teams that aren't represented up in this move. And they are coming up on the next chance to score points very, very quickly here. And these guys will take all of the points off of the table.
They certainly will. This is a very interesting move. 7 seconds, moving up to 8 seconds now. As you said, Dave, 9 riders in this break, 9 different teams represented, and some very powerful teams. Some of the strongest teams in the ZRL are in this break, but a couple of teams, well, one key team in particular has missed it, Canyon Esports. They are the team that are going to have to start, or that they're going to have to be responsible to try and bring this back. BZR Sports Center,
next, right?
BZR and Next as well. So they're going to have to get themselves together. Could be a little bit of brinkmanship here. This is absolutely fascinating. So you are right. Next have not made this move. Canyon Esports have not made this move as well. And they continue to move clear. 8.5 seconds now for the 9 riders out in front. And you have to think back to London, Dave, when we saw the big split of 7 or 8 riders going clear. This is very, very rare that we see such a big group of riders going clear so relatively early on in the race.
But the beginning part of this race, I was talking about regulators mounting up, Matt. The 3 biggest teams, strongest teams, most talent in the world are all sitting back in the second group. So what they're going to do is not step over $1 to pick up a dime. right now. I think that they're happy to let these guys take the points here. And this is really interesting. It shows you how this is a Machiavellian chess match played around the world here in esports. And right now, I think the directors are making the call to just cool your jets, boys. Hold the beans, as they say in Dublin. And we'll go ahead and heat them up in a little bit here, but we're not going to do everything now to bring it back. And what they're kind of having is a bit of a standoff, I think, where no one team wants to take all the responsibility here and waste some bullets.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the first 3 teams on the overall classification. Next Esports, as we know, their 100% record broken last week by finishing only 3rd in the team time trial. That, of course, won by Saris. Canyon Esports, 2nd overall, also adult there. And BZR Sports Solid. Who would have thought, if we'd have said at the start of the race, Dave, we're going to have a 9 or 10 man group go clear with no representatives from the 3 best teams in the ZRL, you'd have told me I was a lunatic. I mean, this is very, very interesting that's playing out on the roads of Makuri Islands today. This is the Temples and Towers course, and we are in for a treat because, Dave, the lead has gone up to 11 seconds now. This group working exceptionally well together.
The realism is absolutely astounding. Our directors, Charlie Eisendorf and his team, have put together absolutely incredible courses. We break it into really 3 different sectors with the team time trial last week. Now, this is David Talbot. This team is in fuego right now. I mean, absolutely on fire is Saris No Pins. The new kit, the energy that they've got, just like Wahoo LaCole, they've got a very strong women's team as well. So Talbot has attacked. Now, it's like the Donner Party's last couple of days. They're attacking each other now up in this front group, which really they're going for the points. There's no doubt about it. 20 points for the first rider over the line here on the Castle Sprint as we race from night into day. It's absolutely frenetic, but Matt, this chase, look how the group is spread out entirely across the road. So they're not really pushing the accelerator down to the floorboard yet.
No, they're certainly not. But this group, they need to try and blob up together. There's no point in attacking each other because this breakaway has an opportunity to try and stay away. But we did see a break in London get around 20 seconds of a lead, but it was brought back in the end. Then it split again, and that was quite an astonishing race. But this is an absolute treat. Not the race that we certainly expected. And this group are now on the Castle KOM climb. It's 2.7 kilometers in length, the average gradient of 2.1. But because there's a few flat sections and a couple of plateaus, it actually gives a false impression of how hard this climb actually is. There's even a slight downhill before it kicks up towards the top, and double points compared to earlier on. 20, 10, 8, 5, 3 and 1. They are the points on offer, but the lead is starting to come back a little bit. It's stabilizing now, but it is Canyon Esports on the front, looking like they're trying to add a little bit of impetus and ensure that this break, Dave, doesn't get too much of a lead.
What beautiful camera work we're enjoying here. I really feel like I'm getting stuck into the greatest race in the world right now, as this is going to be, again, where you start hoping. We've got a sprint coming up, so let's talk about that, Matt. As you said, the points are really steep here, and it looks like it's going to be the Italian Vergarito has hit Tandiamo. Here we go, Luca.
Luca
look at
Vergarito. Yeah, he's gone. But look at this. Vidal Mel is using the steamroller because we are actually on a bit of a concrete block surface. We know that the in-game resistance, depending on the road surface, changes. So really interesting and wise use of the steamroller that reduces that rolling resistance when you're on a rough surface for 30 seconds. And look at this. Vidal Mel using the steamroller to devastating effect on the top of this climb. Remember, double points. The finish line comes in sight only with about 50 meters to go. It's round one of these corners. Look at the beautiful cherry blossoms here, but the Norwegian won't be looking at those. He'll be sniffing the points, but Hewell Davis and Lindquist using their respective power-ups. But Vidal Mel steamrolls across the line there to take maximum points for the orange-clad Movistar team today. 20 points in the bag for him. Lindquist in second with 10. Davis third. Vergalito, the early attacker there in fifth. Muff in fifth. Paul Odlin there with 1 point. And let's have a look at the gap, still holding steady, Dave, at 11 seconds. But if this group want to try and stay away, they need to try and get organized as quickly as they can.
Yeah, and at this point now, I have to think that they were gone past the middle part of this race. The first 2 significant bonuses have gone by. Now it's about to get real, to tell you the truth. The big teams will chase. I hope that they all start to combine. Take a look at this now, Matt. Here we go.
Yeah, they're looking at the points there, Dave. Just confirmation. Movistar leading at the moment with 20. Great ride in there by Mel. And next Esports with 10. And then we have Team Swedish Zwifters with 10 points. And then the rest following behind. Next time up is the Temple KOM, if I can get my words out. So exciting is the racing today with 30, 20, 15 on offer down to the first 10 riders as Vogalito now goes clear, or just drifts off the front of the bunch. But the peloton behind Dave have reacted a bit. They're not letting this group go out too much. It's now down to 9 seconds to our 9 riders out in front.
And I have a feeling it comes down extremely quickly here, because at this point now, especially, Matt, if you're one of the riders that have been in this group and doing work and you didn't score any points, talk about taking the wind out of your sails. The exact opposite is now this effort helped other teams pick up a lot of points. When you walk handed, that's morale killer.
Well, 3.6 Ks to the Temple climb. The points over the top are through the center of the giant and mystical tree. And it's been a mystical race so far, although the lead is coming down. It's Oliver Simmons who's chasing behind for the BZR Sports Solid team. Remember, BZR, Canyon Esports and Next Esports have no representation in this front group of 9 riders who are still riding well. Remember, the teams chasing behind will be able to communicate within the teams to each other, but the group out in front, because they're completely disparate, they won't be connected. So the only communication they have is assuming that everybody wants to ride together. So the dynamics when you have a group of disparate riders, Dave, is very, very different than the organization you get behind.
I'm looking at Frederick Muff here and the riders that are pushing on, and remembering again that orange jersey is Vidar Mel here. You know, it's almost like, Matt, getting in the early breakaway and then waiting for the second half of the race, the final act to come up to you and maybe see if your teammates are going to attack out of the peloton for the big points at Temple. It's almost really, we talked about that gambler's preem element. I have a feeling that you designate riders to go for the Temple points. They're massive, and then set up another rider for the finale out here. I don't think too many riders would have the depth to be able to go for 2. Taking a look.
Well, this is the rider, Oliver Simmons, on the front for Belgium. I think he's been tasked to try and drag this group back a little bit, because they're back to 4.5 seconds. They can just see the group behind. A couple of power-ups being dropped. That was the burrito being dropped by the rider just towards the back of that group there. That was the Saris no-pins rider, but it does look, there's a big attack on the right-hand side. The steamroller deployed at the lower slopes of the climb, and it is Muff who is steamrolling himself off the front. Great use of the steamroller power-up. We saw it being used very well by Vidar Mel a while ago, but Muff has attacked. 33 ride-ons from the rider from Denmark. 500, 600 watts, Dave, at the bottom of this climb. Still the hardest part of this climb, still to come.
With World Championships coming up, I feel like there's a real renaissance going on the PO Auto team, and this is certainly going to be a rider to watch going forward, as Muff is on tremendous form right now. This man is a human wattage cottage, and he is blowing up that group. So this is absolutely a play, and they do have the depth to play both the Temple and the finale here. Ryan Larson now is going forward for Saris No Pins. This is a significant sector that we're moving into right now, Matt. Look at the quality of these riders. It's Muff, it's Larson, Pim van Diemen, a previous winner in the ZRL. Jakob Bjorklund now, that's the Swedish Zwifter moving forward here. This is a who's who up on the front here as we're moving into 12K to go.
Everybody using their steamrollers, Dave, at different points on the climb. Jakob Bjorklund, he attacked earlier on. He's clearly, this is probably the best race I've seen him riding. Got very, very good legs as Pim van Diemen of Movistar. Remember Movistar today riding in the orange kit, so keep an eye out for those. Van Diemen, also Spencer Segerbrook. The first time we've seen Canyon Esports go on the offensive, maybe to try and split things up. This is one of the, we've just been over one of the steepest parts. We've still got several really nasty hairpins to go where the gradient maxes out at 8%. And remember, the riders are riding off-road here. They're riding on this gravel dirt road, so the resistance is going to be far heavier. That's why we're seeing riders deploy that steamroller power-up to make it feel as if they're riding on normal roads. Still 1,500 meters to go to the top of this climb, Dave. Some really nasty, tricky sections before it flattens out over the bridge and into the center of the giant mystical tree. What a race we've had so far.
It takes a lot of patience, Matt, to hold on to that steamroller, but as we quickly come up on the final K of this climb, I mean, it really is like turning the cobbles of Paris-Roubaix into a Beverly Hills parking lot for 30 seconds. It's a massive difference when you do deploy that steamroller. Here goes Leonard Tugels, who can put together an amazing 20-minute power profile. As a matter of fact, he has to come in with a huge target on his back. There's a breakthrough rider, Tyler West, that we're looking at now. Tyler West has become a big player. This is a hitter, folks, moving up to the front. This is an OSS situation. Only the strong are going to survive through the temple climb here.
Yeah, I've just been told this guy's got better hair than me. Well, I'll leave you to decide that, but we're looking at Tyler West with that fetching headband on there. He's also got a very, very neatly folded towel, probably one of the neatest towels I've ever seen in the ZRL. As we head to the top of this climb now, a couple of these little bridges, then we've got a couple of snaky little hairpins before we head into the centre of the giant mystical tree. A reminder, double points again on the top of this climb, so lots and lots at stake. 30 points, then 20, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 3, 2, 1 for the first 10 riders. Lots on offer, 740 metres to go, and we've got an attack off the front from Pim van Diemen.
Yeah, this is Pim van Diemen attacking right now. You can see some of the big names are moving up. As Matt said, there are a lot of points here. We're in with the Dutch rider now. He's going to use that burrito, so 2.5 meters around him. No draft, but that didn't matter, as it looks like Oscar Vid is going to go right by him like a rocket ship as he throws a steamroller up. Steamroller, again, 30 seconds. This dirt road turns into smooth tarmac. I think he played that perfectly, Matt. Pio Otto is back and in full effect out here. He's going to be maybe 20 seconds of digging deep, and he'll hold on. That camera shot gives us a good look at the gap that he's opened up. Oscar is en fuego right now.
He certainly is absolutely flying over the top. He used that power up just at the right time. And look at the gap that he's opened up, Fid. 9 seconds on the top of that climb. He hit that really steep gradient, carried that momentum through. He crosses the line in third place. No doubt about who takes the points there. 30 points for Fid. Who's going to be next? Is it going to be Turgles? Turgles deploys the power up, gets second place there for BZR Sports Solid. Looks like Hill was up there as well, also deploying the steamroller power up. There is confirmation. Spid takes maximum points ahead of fan favourite Leonard Turgles with 20. Ben Hill also up there as well with 15. And Fugamali, great riding by the Italian rider there in 4th for 12th. Then we have Tenselhoff, Larson, Barnes, Kalman, Van Diemen and Lionel Vujasan. So a great fight here. I'm just looking back through the field, this is absolutely, Dave, detonated. Let's check in and see what the point situation is. What a day it is for Pio Auto Ceramic Speed. Movistar in second there, a distant 14 points behind. BZR Sports Solid in third. Then we have Wahoo, Italy Aero, and the rest. But Vid is flying down this descent, and the dirt roads continue for another kilometre, Dave.
We have never seen a ZRL race blown to bits quite like this one is right now. Race 5 of 6 of this season has turned into an absolute Donnybrook right now. Who's going to even survive? It looks like we've got right now Tugels is trying to nail back Oscar. That's going to be Tugels there in the Belgian, the BZR Sports Solid jersey. Let's see if they can link together as Tugels just going to go right by him like a rocket ship on rails. And that's going to be the case as Tugels is now alone with 9.4K to go. This is the Tête de la Corsa, the front of the bike race. Leonard Tugels looks like he's about to go all in. Look at the damage that's being done now. From tip to tail, it has got to be 30 seconds from the front riders to the back of the peloton right now. I don't even know if you can call it a peloton. Here comes James Barnes, the pride of South Africa, racing in New Zealand here, a 3-time winner in the ZRL. That's a danger man without a doubt. Back to you, Matt. It is on like Donkey Kong here on the Macquarie Islands.
It certainly is. I was waiting for that one, Dave. You brought it out with 8.9 Ks to go because we have a 3-man breakaway out in front. Oscar Vied of Pio Auto Ceramic Speed with him for company from BZR Sports Solid. As I said, a big fan favourite, one of the most aggressive riders out there, Leonard Turgles. Also there, Pim van Diemen of the Netherlands riding for Movistar. Then there's a small gap. We've got Alexis Kalman trying to get across the gap for World of Elite Zwifters. There's a clutch of riders at 1.5 seconds. Ben Hill, Aero Tuck, good move by Ben Hill. So we've got now about 8 or 9 riders out in front. Van Diemen, Barnes, Fumagali, Kamian is there, Pim van Diemen, Tyler West is also there as well. So this group's swelling. They've now got back onto the tarmac. So a little bit of calm after the storm as they pass through these beautiful cherry blossoms. But this now is the group that's out in front. And as you said, Dave, this peloton, if you can call it that, split across. Well, the first 25 riders are split over 26 seconds as we look at James Barnes. As you said, riding in New Zealand there. So 46 ride-ons for Barnes. Remember, if you haven't given him a ride on, why not? Please do fire up your companion app and get involved. Give these riders a ride on, because this has been an absolutely superb race so far. 7.7 kilometers to go as Bouya-san goes right over the top.
Lionel, the train on his way to make the race here as we come inside of 7.5K. That's going to be Velocio, the yellow jersey of Velocio, coming over the top as there he is, KBH, the People's Champion. As we take a look at the two groups have merged together now. So Group 1 and Group 2 have merged now, Matt, as we're wow, Takedo Ikeda is there. So the work from World Elite Zwifters has set up the Japanese rider, and it looks like he's got a teammate with him. I got to think that's Paul Odlin. Start taking some inventory up in this front group. As this might be it, Matt. I have a feeling our winner and our top 10 certainly are in this front group now.
Indeed, Takato Ikeda. Come on, he's only got 20 ride-ons. Give this man some more. Takeda, such a popular rider. Remember, we're going to be heading back in exactly the same way we came in. So reverse part of the route. Remember, we've been out into the countryside. We started in Nyokyo, and we will be finishing in Nyokyo. So we'll be retracing the opening kilometers. Just look at the dinosaur hand on the left-hand side, a relic of the past. We have 19 riders in this front group who are enjoying now a lead of 27 seconds over the rest. And with only 6.5 Ks to go, Dave, I don't think we're going to see anybody else get back in contact. The winner should come from this group.
The last thing you want when you're in this group is to look around and see a motivated and fresh James Barnes, as James has been one of, I mean, you look at the great names like Catherine Curie, Freddie Ovett, and certainly James Barnes is the winningest riders in ZRL history, and this is a great opportunity. Now, it's all about getting 3 riders in the top 10. We've been talking about that for the last year and a half here in the ZRL. All in all, with 50 points for the winner, 40 for second, 35 for third. You can see the lion's share of the points are going to go to the riders and the teams that are up there in this final kick. Matt, it's going to be, I would have a strong feeling, riders coming across the line in small groups of 1 and 2s by the time this one is paid out here. It's going to be an absolutely brutal finish.
It's just, again, with 5.6 Ks to go, I've got to comment on the courses that we've had. Every single course is new. Everyone is different. The way the points have been weighted, and the fact that these riders every single week are racing on brand new terrain. Okay, they can recon these courses, but racing on these courses with the points distribution makes for such unpredictable, exciting racing. This is the best ZRL we've had. It is absolutely fantastic. Some of the best racing I've ever seen. This just gets better and better and better as we have a look at the stats of the Irishman riding for Wahoo Lacole with 51 ride-ons there. That wonderful new kit. Again, the only rider I can see, Dave, in this group with a flat cap. Incredible stuff here from the man from Ireland.
Yeah, he came from the Vitas team and has a tremendous amount of esports experience, and certainly the pride of Ireland. I can't wait to see. He's the Irish national champion, cyclocross champion, a Swiss Army knife of ability. Wahoo Lacole is a team that's made a big step forward, and this is a great opportunity for them to move solidly up into our top 5, and that's really the name of the game here. Individual glory, certainly, it's huge. There's a rider who's gotten that already in this league, as Pim van Diemen is in this group. My wild card here, Kevin Bouchard Hall. He just made the U.S. Worlds team, qualifying with a top 5 ride. That was, we were talking about Zach Nair, who won the first sprint today, won that race, but this is going to be a big surge for Christopher McGlinchey here. So McGlinchey has hit out, and that's going to do some damage here. Lactic acid's got to be building in the legs. You can see what it takes. He's nearly at 500 watts right now. Christopher McGlinchey turning the screws, coming up on 4K to go, Matt.
He's certainly riding well there, isn't he? As you said, 57 ride-ons, but Bouchard Hall goes straight over the top in those white shorts. That'll give him a bit of a shock. 6.8 watts a kilo. perhaps sensing that because this group is relatively small, that there could be opportunities to try and go early. Bouchard Hall just off the front by around half a second. That little effort going straight over the top has put McGlinchey in a little bit of difficulty. Remember, when you've been off the front making a big effort, and when you do get caught by the bunch, there's now 60, 70 riders normally to sit in the wheels of. If you get caught in a small group like this, you're really put under pressure, as we see Daniel Jamrozic now rocking from side to side, moving clear now, looking very, very strong indeed. Bouchard Hall just about in his slipstream, and the rest of the riders about a second and a half behind now. Remember, 19 riders in this front group, and we only have 3.5 kilometers to go, and shortly we'll be going through the Umezi tunnel back in to the permanite of Neokio, and that's a decent split here, Dave.
Yeah, this is a nasty little combination when you talk about KBH and Jamrozic as the two Americans coming together. They got Leonard Tugels to throw into the mix. If you're going to put 3 riders together in a breakaway, certainly these would be your guys. This is going to be interesting, but I tell you what, Matt, while I have just a moment here, my thought is the fact that we have not talked about Lionel Viasen all that much, and that is a great sign for him here today. This has been the highest level of professionalism. I mean, what Lionel is doing here today is riding an incredibly smart race. I think he saved it all for the finale, where you're going to see a Belgian blowtorch when it comes to the line. I think Lionel Viasen might get his first ever ZRL win today. I'm going to call my shot right now at 2.7K to go. The Canyon rider is hungry.
He certainly is. He's got one teammate in there for company as well. It's Segerbrook, the American Pirot there as well from BZR. BZR Sports Solid have 3 riders in this front group. Looking at Ikeda there as well. Vuyasan just at the back of this group. I do think he's a definite dark horse. It is incredible. He's one of the biggest stars of esports, isn't he? Of course, won the qualifier for the World Championships. We'll see him there, but has never won incredibly in the ZRL. And as you said, has ridden so far a very, very canny race. Pim van Diemen of Movistar also there as mix. Fumagalli in the mix for Italy too. Takado Ikeda, Alexis Kalman of World of Elite Zwifters is also in the mix, as is Oscar Vid and Tyler West. Just a few of the names to conjure with, but another attack from Bouchard Hall over the top, Dave. 2Ks to go.
Relentless. I mean, this is his MO, no doubt about it. But I have to, again, going back to Lionel Viasen, he's got more top 5s in the ZRL than any other rider, and he's still waiting to find the top step. Kevin Bouchard Hall has been in the bank. He's got the money, and now he's in a getaway car. He really needs to channel that hope that the other teams, Matt, don't think he's dangerous enough that they fully commit to the chase. He needs to get them to play around a little bit, and this is starting to look like a very interesting gap. Let's see how dangerous this becomes. It's a ticking time bomb when you play around with a guy like New Hampshire's Kevin Bouchard Hall. He's going to play the steamroller. This is huge. So he's turned that dirt into tarmac for 30 seconds. The attacks are coming fast and furious as this man is turning himself inside out right now, Matt.
This is an amazing move by Kevin Bouchard Hall. He deployed that power up just at the right time. There's no point in deploying it on the concrete because he won't give you any benefit at all. It will just keep things the same. So a perfect, intelligent move by Kevin Bouchard Hall. But he's being pursued here by Felix Schwieb. He's got a 2.9 second advantage over the rider from Germany who is chasing him. But Bouchard Hall is alone. He has got 1 kilometer to go, but Schwieb is chasing him. And then we have another couple of seconds back. Well, Schwieb has been caught by Turgles and Vuyasan and West. 900 meters to go, Dave, as we head back into the Okio.
You don't get many chances like this one. Lionel Viasen has now opened up the throttle. It's full gas at this point. He's not getting much of a gap. Leonard Tugels is holding on. Felix is trying to keep in those wheels. Schwieb has gone up into the red numbers. Here comes Ryan Larson of the Sarah Snowpins team. That pink and white is going to be Larson. It's a desperate bid as they rapidly come up on 500 meters to go. This is anybody's bike race. Who's going to hit the line first? Oh, it's a lottery right now here in the Macquarie Islands. Back to you, Matt.
Ryan Larson has gone straight over the top. Desperation for Kevin Bouchard Hall, who was called, but Larson for no pins. A flurry of power-ups. And who's coming out of the bunch? I think it's Christopher McGlinchey. McGlinchey of Ireland, and Wahoo Lacol is absolutely flying. Also coming up very closely is James Barnes as well. Is McGlinchey v Barnes. McGlinchey v Barnes on the line. Oh, it's so close. I can't call it. McGlinchey and Barnes cross the line neck and neck. We'll have to wait for confirmation. What an absolutely superb sprint by McGlinchey and Barnes. Photo finish time but I do think it is, again, Mr. James Barnes will get confirmation. You couldn't get closer than that. It is James Barnes riding out of New Zealand, representing South Africa for Next Esports. Revenge for last week brings them back to the top again. McGlinchey, great ride by him in second. Oscar Vid in third. David Fumagalli, one of the best rides for Team Italy there in fourth. Tenselhoff in fifth for Wahoo Lacole. Alexis Karlman there in sixth place. Vujasan and Van Noppen there, seventh and eighth, respectively, for Canyon Esports. Leonard Turgles, the first homes of BZR Sports Solid. Pim Van Diemen rounding out the top 10. And then we have the rest: Jamrosik, West, Van Alst, Larson, Pirot, Ikeda, Schwab, Ben Hill, Kevin Bouchard Hall. After that wonderful attack, it came to nothing in the end, unfortunately. Daniel Gould there in 20th. Dave, we've got a replay ready. I'm exhausted. Talk us through the final frenetic, amazing, thrilling last few meters of this race.
I don't think there's a sport in the world where the athletes dig deeper than they do in esports here on Zwift. It is so hard to time this right, and you can see the experience from James Barnes as he goes on to take a record number of wins. I mean, just like absolutely perfect in technique. It's desire as well. At this point, Christopher McGlinchey and James Barnes are going to give us one of our best ever finishes in the ZRL. That's some beautiful racing. These are the gladiators of Zwift.
Brilliant.
Isn't that special?
There. I mean, look at this. Just a power up being deployed, an aero power up as well. Wow, so close. I mean, an amazing race. Again, another thriller. We are being treated, Dave, to some of the best racing I've ever seen in the ZRL. As I said before, it gets better and better. Thanks for calling it alongside me, Dave. That was absolutely fantastic, but I've now got to throw it back to Simon and Hannah in the studio. Back to you guys. Lots to talk about.
Wow. What a race. I mean, that was an absolute stormer, wasn't it, Hannah? As Matt and Dave were saying, one of the best finishes of all time, but also everything that led up to it. It was a real tactical nail-biter, wasn't it?
When you see how it unfolded from start to finish, the attacks that went, that big move of the 9 riders from 9 different teams with still 20 kilometres left remaining, and 3 of the biggest teams who are currently at the top of the standings. Next Esports weren't there, BZR Sports Solid weren't there, Canyon Esports weren't there, and it was a moment for some of these other riders, these other teams, to really get a hold of this series and shake things up, and it was looking that way until it all came back together. I mean, it was full of thrill.
It was, wasn't it? But even then, when it came back together, we had 19 riders and a lot of names that we don't normally see at the very sharp end of the ZRL Premier Division, do we? I mean, conspicuous in their absence were Next Esports. They had just James Barnes in there. Of course, James Barnes then went on to win the individual, so they stand themselves a pretty good chance. But other than that, no other riders in the top 19 for them. It's going to be interesting to see how that impacts their results, doesn't it?
Again, yeah, it's something we're not used to seeing from Next Esports come that finish line. We're generally used to seeing 5, if not 4 riders within that sort of top 20, top 25 scoring the big points. And yeah, tonight wasn't their night. We'll have to see.
Well, we can see now, yeah. So we have the results for you. So we're going to head over to them now. Are Next going to have done enough to reclaim the top spot with James taking the individual there? Or Wahoo Lacole taking victory? Look at that. 5 points ahead of Next Esports, powered by Insured. Wow. A turn up for the books, maybe. BZR Sports Solid Lacole in 3rd place with 76 points. PO Auto Ceramic Speed in 71. They had a fantastic night in the intermediate points, didn't they? Canyon Esports in 5th. Movistar down in 6th with 54. What do you make of that? Wahoo Lacole, a great outing for them today.
Tremendous, that. Really great for Wahoo Lacole to take that top spot in the team standings. And unfortunately, McGlinchey, caught on the line for the individual victory. That would have been very sweet, wouldn't it, to take both the individual and team on the night. But yeah, tremendous stuff. And I think the way that they, as a team on the men's side, they've been seeing what's been happening on the women's side of Wahoo Lacole and seeing their success and how they've been racing together. And I'm sure that success breeds success, and they can only have been inspired too. And yeah, they raced well, and it's well deserved.
Well, that's it. Can the women's squad back it up again? We've got the results for the series now. So how the series standings go into that final round. Next Esports still on top, but their lead now just 8 points there. Actually, no, I tell a lie. Sorry, my maths is poor. 12 points. It's extended from 10 to 12. So they are going to be. Well, despite not getting that victory again, they'll be happy, won't they, going to that? BZR Sports Solid in second, Canyon Esports now in third with 84 points, Kalash in fifth, and Wahoo Cole jumping up to fourth place there. I mean, look at that, from 10 points last week to 20 points this week. That's boosted their chances no end. Whether or not they can get on the podium next week, I suppose, is we'll find out. But still, I mean, next, looking very, very good at the top now, aren't they?
And that consistency is vital in this series. Week on week, performing, being up there in the team standings, and despite the second place tonight, still 19 points. They've still extended that lead. A team who I just noticed there, who've really, dropped a lot of places and a lot of points in the standings. They were only, Kalash Esports were only 1 point behind the podium, and now Wahoo Cole have jumped them, and they're around 10 points behind now. So yeah, there's a few teams who this course did not favour them tonight.
No, it didn't. I mean, we were talking beforehand, and you said you thought there might be different names rising to the fore tonight. What was it about that course, do you think, that changed it? Is it the fact that gravel climb is just so hard?
I think it's a combination of that gravel climb, getting it right, the steamroller. You saw how many riders, when they deployed that power up, the impact that it had on the race and the situation, but also the amount of elevation on tonight's course. It was just over 300 metres of elevation throughout, but it was the 3 different climbs, and very different types of climbs. They weren't short, sharp and punchy. They were relatively long, just under 2 kilometres. We had the final one, 2.5 kilometres. It's more designed for those climbers. And I think that's why we've seen, the different riders come to the fore tonight. Yeah,
well, so one of the big things that happened in the race early on was, of course, that breakaway of 9 riders early on, which went, as we left Neokyo, we hit a short sector of gravel. And that was unusual, wasn't it? And that we had 9 teams, none of the big 3 were represented. It was, I wondered whether they might last the distance, because they had quite a big gap, didn't they, at one point?
And because there was the 3 big teams missing, and it was this opportunity, this chance for those other teams to take a victory tonight, to really put themselves up in the front. They were working well together, whether it was going to come to, and it was quite a nice number of riders, I think, in a breakaway. 9 riders, it's enough that you've still got that strength, that horsepower in the breakaway. And because there was 1 from each team, no one would feel that, well, perhaps one team's going to start to miss a turn because they've got 2 riders. No team was sort of watching back, thinking, well, they've got 2 riders, 3 riders represented, well, they should do the bulk of the work. So it was, evenly matched.
It was, wasn't it? And great riding from Vidal Mel, from Movistar, resplendent in their orange this week.
Yeah, very different.
Deploying the steamroller power-up on that cobbled climb, which is something we didn't mention, actually, in the lead into the race. I was thinking steamroller was going to be all about the gravel, but actually used a devastating effect there by Mel. That was some smart riding, wasn't it?
Very, very smart. And you saw that, the one big effort getting him up there, that scored in that 20 points. And I think one thing I really love about the series, and you saw it tonight, is the incremental changes in the points available at each King of the Mountain point.
Yeah, right. Now, I'm delighted to say that we are about to be joined by James Barnes, winner of the race. James, congratulations. It's good to speak to you again. I believe, according to Dave Toll, you are the winningest rider in ZRL history now in terms of individuals, so congratulations on that. But also, man alive, a lot of pressure on your shoulders tonight. The only next esports rider in that lead group of 19, and you've managed to salvage 2nd place overall on the night for the team. That's some ride.
Yeah, it was big pressure, and kudos to the other guys who put the effort in to create that split and put us under that big pressure, because you guys definitely made the racing. We've been working on it really hard with my coach Alex for these 4 or 5 minute efforts, facing towards World Championships. So this is a really good form tester for everybody in the racing. Feel sorry for Tom. He had stomach issues today, so he was just hanging on as long as he could. You know, big effort from Zach. He had a massive ride to take out that first KOM, and then also salvage 17th overall from the second group as well, which I think helped secure second place, if he said correctly, overall. So it was a massive, big team effort as always. And Dave, I don't think I'm the most winningest. I think Tom, I might be level with Tom overall. But again, I think it's down to the team as well. So thanks.
What were your tactics coming into tonight? Did you envisage that it would be quite as selective as it was and that you'd end up with a small group contesting the finish?
Yeah, we knew that the big pressure points was the Temple KOM and with the Castle KOM as well. Just you could see how it was very stringy at the Castle KOM, and then how it got even more selective. I'll be honest, I was right on the limit going up that Temple KOM, and when I saw we were getting near the top, and I luckily had the steamroller power up to get me in and hold contact with the bunch, and then a case of just being smart, riding smart, following the wheels and digging really deep as possible at the finish line to try and then hope. And I think I got the timing spot on, as I'm sorry for Chris, because I think I took him literally on the line.
You did, yeah. I mean, it really was an incredible finish, one of the best ever. It's being called already by Matt and Dave. Did you know the exact point that you were going to open up your sprint, or was it instinct that led you to go when you did?
We had there was a lot of timing in terms of practice of getting the timings just right with all the previous races, and then also reconning the route as well. Knowing that basically from the end of the tunnel it's about 900 meters to the finish line there, and then surfing the wheels and following the wheels basically until everybody else starts kicking, and then being the last one basically to drop the power up and the last one to kick, because you want to be the last one to surge through the bunch and break the draft right at the end.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, James, for chatting to us, and congratulations again. That was a very, very impressive ride indeed. And interesting, Hannah, as well, that he's talking about the esports worlds, because they're coming up very soon at the end of this month. And also interesting to think of a rider like James not representing Next Esports at the race. He'll be representing South Africa, you'd assume. Yeah,
and it's very different, isn't it? And he mentioned as well how he's been tailoring his training for those 4-5-minute efforts with his coach Alex. And as you said, riders really putting so much focus onto those Esports World Championships on the 26th of February. And these are where the races like this week and next week is where it's really going to be showing who's going to be up there and who's in form.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard as well, isn't it? Building up for an objective when you've got these weekly events that are so demanding, so draining. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the training goes, whether or not someone like Turgles, who's taken a week off to go and hit a training camp, well, we won't have long to wait, will we? Before we leave the men's race analysis, let's go back to that 19-rider group that emerged over the top of that Temple KOM there. It was an incredible ride by Vid to take the KOM by, I think it was like 11 seconds or something, wasn't it? That was astonishing.
Yeah, it was sensational, and it was constantly ever-changing, actually. I mean, I felt like there was so much action going on in that final sort of even 15 kilometres, so much change, and then riders going off the front, and Vid's move was exceptional. I mean, he was only just below 1,000 watts at one point when he made that big breakaway.
Yeah,
which
really
just shows the effort that it took.
Well, absolutely, yeah. And also, we've got to say, Bouchard Hall rolled the dice, didn't he? That was his best chance of victory, and it looked like it was pretty good until about 500 metres to go when he got caught, wasn't it? And
at this point, I mean, you just saw the rest of the bunch there. There was no real reaction from the get-go to the move of Kevin Bouchard Hall. And for me, surprising, knowing how strong he's been over the last few weeks and how strong he has been, that they didn't react straight away. But as you say, only just got caught within that final kilometre. But he knows he doesn't have that sprint to go for it come the finish line. He has to roll the dice. He has to try something and hope that it pulls off. And one day, as we know, a breakaway will pull off for a rider.
Absolutely. And maybe it's next week because there is a summit finish in the final round. Before we move on to the women's race, just a quick reminder of what's coming up on GCN Plus, by the way, this week, because it's absolutely stacked with racing. We've got Tour de la Provence, we've got Tour of Oman, we've got Vuelta a Murcia, Classic Almeria, we've got cyclocross for you as well, the Super Prestige from Havre, and also the X2O Trophy in Brussels as well. So that's all over on GCN Plus, over on the GCN app. Right then, let us turn our attention to the women's race now, and firstly remind ourselves of what happened in the team time trial last week.
Less about me, more about Beth McKee, because she is flying up this climb. Wow, she is absolutely lit. The afterburners there. I'm surprised she kept the two wheels on the floor and catapulted herself into the river, to be perfectly honest with you. Such was the power there. Look at that, 29.07. They are the fastest team. Meanwhile, Wahoo Lacole aren't too far behind. Remember, they set the fastest time at the first intermediate split. Langham's going for it. She was clearly holding back there and has catapulted herself through the group, getting the draft of the group to try and go for the split here. Zoe Langham, the finish is in sight, so clearly we've seen the turn of speed that she possesses. Hino still led with the fastest time of 32.36. What can Wahoo Lacole do? They have done it.
Wahoo Lacole then doing what Next failed to do, maintaining that winning streak. 4 out of 4 and with a comfortable 27-second margin of victory over Hino. Saris Nopins were in third, a further 23 seconds back, but then almost level on time with Movistar, who were just 0.2 of a second in arrears. Beast Mode, powered by Rose, then round out the top 5. In the overall, Wahoo Lacole are sitting pretty on 80 points, 8 points ahead of Saris Nopins. Hino 3 points further adrift in third. Aeonian on 64 after that horror team time trial, and then Movistar in 5th with 61 points. Well, it's going to be interesting to see whether Wahoo Lacole can do the double tonight. The Wahoo Lacole women's team, though, as we saw, 4 wins out of 4. We've heard from them in previous weeks. They seem very well prepared. The amount of reconnaissance they do is incredible, but I think, or I wonder whether or not in that team time trial we saw that they are just simply the strongest team as well. What do you reckon?
I think they are, but I think well drilled is also why Wahoo Lacole are so good and so dominant at the moment. They've got a fantastic DS. You hear they hear in their ears from the communication, their tactics. As you mentioned, the reconnaissance of every course and how much attention to detail they put in to make sure that they know exactly where they could make a move, where they need to be. And I think just that team spirit between all of the riders on the team is there, and you can see them supporting each other, giving them all words of encouragement. I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess the question now, given that they've been so dominant this season, is how other teams are going to beat them. What is it that they're going to have to do? And can they do it on this course, which, as we saw in the men's race, has shown some new faces rise to the top?
Tonight's going to be really telling for Wahoo Lacole and for those watching to see how they can deal with the type of course, the different type of course. It's a very different style of racing, as we saw in the men's race. A different type of rider, but a pool of riders who were up there in that front group and who were sort of pushing the pace and really in the thick of the action. So that'll be telling. But I think they are strong. They're all in great form, great shape. And I think that success breeds success. We've seen it done before in previous seasons of the ZRL with Hino. Why not tonight for Wahoo Lacole again?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to say there's an element of luck comes into it, doesn't it? Particularly with the power-ups. I think of all the power-ups in all the rounds, the steamroller is perhaps the most potent. I mean, it really does make a huge difference. And if you get it, as we saw, this is Fid, isn't it? I think launching over the top of the Temple KOM. And he got a huge gap when he went for it.
If you're a rider who has got a lot of watts to give, I mean, as I mentioned before, his attack here was just below 1,000 watts for around 5-6 seconds, and combine that with the steamroller, he gained, over 10 seconds. So it was quite immediate. He was able to take those maximum points of 30. If a rider on Wahoo Col or any of the riders on a team can have that combination, it's a good recipe.
It is, isn't it? Now, one rider who we should definitely be looking at today is Ashley Moolman-Pasio, the world esports champion and one of the best climbers in real life. We saw when she debuted for the first time in round 2 that she struggled a little bit with the feel of Zwift Racing again, or that's what it seemed like anyway, on the course around New York that wouldn't necessarily suit her attributes. But today, you'd think, given that gravel climb, that might be up her street.
Absolutely. Anything that goes uphill, any elevation and ascent gained for Ashley Moolman-Pasio is fantastic for her because she's just such an exceptional climber. I think that when we were in Park Perimeter in New York, perhaps was a little bit of a wake-up call of how different, having spent a lot of time on the road, IRL, on team training camps, and perhaps not being on Zwift as much just because of sort of other things, that she needs to spend some more time. And I know she's been really concentrating on being back on Zwift, doing the races, doing a lot of recons with the team, while supporting the community aspect of Rock Corba Collective, with a real sort of vision for herself over the next 2 weeks in the ZRL on the climbing races, but with the big vision of defending that world title at the end of February.
Yeah, I've just received a ticking off in my ear, by the way. It was round 3, of course, not round 2. Now, I suppose one thing, though, again, that we saw in the men's race, it's very selective, that temple climb, but then it's a flat-out sprint to the finish, and that's not going to suit Ashley Moolman-Pasio, is it? So, in order for her to win, is she going to have to go solo for that last 10 kilometres, which would be a big ask, wouldn't it?
I think even if she can make a select group of riders over the top of the temple climb, really whittle down and take as few riders as possible to the finish line with her, at least she has a few options in that final 10 kilometres. It might not be that she has to go solo for 10 kilometres, but even if the group is 5 riders at that point, sort of going into the final few kilometres, she can always attack. She still has that strength and power in the legs to do so.
Yeah, and you'd think if there was a 5-rider group, that another name that was almost guaranteed to be in there is Kristen Kulczynski. She won the final round that finished at the top of the temple climb, didn't she, in season 1? Another rider to watch today, surely.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I know we keep talking about it, we keep saying it, but with the World Championships in mind, all of these riders who are selected, who have qualified, are really coming into that form, and the more elevation gained for these riders, the more ascent, the better they will go. And Kristen Kulczynski, you can never overlook her.
Yeah, well, let's have a look at her teammates as well that are going to be supporting her. So we have got the lineup coming on screen shortly. Who do you think is going to be the other riders that are really going to be in the mix come the finale?
A rider for me from Virginia Blue Ridge 2024 is Ashley McIntosh, a new rider to the team. She's been exceptionally strong. She's been showing her face a lot in the races. It's been quite impressive. But likewise, Naomi de Pennington up there in the climbs too. I'd say, support Kristen Kulczynski. Of course, they're all riding together for the team classification. But yeah, I've been impressed with McIntosh.
Yeah, OK, and then let's also check out Saris Nopins then, shall we? So 2nd overall going into tonight. Who do you think are we going to be looking out for particularly from this team?
Catherine Curry for me. She's got 3 victories under her belt in the ZRL previously. She's a great climber. She's got a very fast sprint come the finish line. She's so experienced in esports, also IRL, former USA road race champion. She's been a World Cup winner down in Australia. So I think for me, Catherine Curry, it's a good course for her.
Yeah, OK then. Now, given that we have learnt a considerable amount from watching the men's race, I'm going to put you on the line here, Hannah, and say who is going to win in the women's race?
I'm going to go with Curry.
Really?
Yeah, I am going to go with Curry. Catherine Curry of Saris Nopins.
Interesting.
Who's your pick?
So I'm going to go with Wahoo Col, actually. I think what we saw in the team time trial last week is a testament to their fitness as well as their preparation, and I think that's going to see them rise to the fore. But I have a feeling that we're going to get a small group going away over the top, and so it'd be fantastic, wouldn't it, as well, to see whether there are some new names in the mix.
It would.
Any teams that you think might be showing that we wouldn't normally see?
Well, I do think on a course like tonight, it will be Rocco Corba Collective in the red jerseys. I think they'll be showing. Be interesting to see how Movistar go tonight.
Yeah. All right then. Well, let's head over to Matt in the commentary booth and see what happens in the race.
Thank you very much indeed, Simon. And I wait to see how quickly that Hannah can get to me in the booth. Here we are again. We are back in Makuri Islands. We were here, of course, in round one, and it's the Temples and Towers route, 33.13 kilometres, a lumpy day, which equates to 320 metres of elevation. And we've got points available at the Rooftop KOM, the Castle KOM and the Temple KOM, and you can see the points increase as we get deeper into the race. We've got the Aero, the Burrito and the Steamroller power-up, each with a similar probability. And as they were discussing on the sofa, the Steamroller is, well, it's absolutely fantastic. It's been deployed on the gravel sections, and basically that reduces your rolling resistance for 30 seconds. So if you are using it on the gravel, it makes it like riding on tarmac. So it makes you that much more efficient. And we've seen how devastating, how effective that Steamroller was in the men's race. It's time for the women. They are underway now. It's a quick start. We start off, of course, in the night time of Nyokio, in the perma night of Nyokio. And then we move out to the first climb. That's the Rooftop KO, and that only comes at after 3.4 kilometers. Then we come out, should I say, of Nyokio back into the beautiful countryside for the Castle KOM and the Temple KOM, loop back round, come back in the way we've come to finish back in Nyokio as well. So really intriguing course, never been raced before. We saw the men do it, but this is the first time the women have tackled this in a race, and also the first time we've seen the Steamroller used as well. So this should be very, very good indeed. Omid Pennington is there at the front, the Team 2024. A few little ride-ons just being dropped already. Remember, please do get involved in the comments underneath the GCN Racing YouTube, and please fire open your Zwift companion apps, get involved and give these riders some ride-ons. I'm going to ask Hannah a quick, I'm going to welcome Hannah into the fray. Great to have you alongside me again. Cannot wait to get stuck into this race. But is that an official Zwift jumper you've got on there? Because it's the exact, David and myself were observing, it's exactly the same Pantone as Zwift. Is that official merch?
It is. It's coming soon to all good stores near you. It can be found on Zwift.com in their shop. Yes, very, very close, isn't it?
Brilliant stuff. No, looking good. One more question before we move on. Is it a tank top or is it a regular jumper?
It is sort of a woolen jumper tank top. I mean, it's got no sleeves, it's got a white shirt underneath. Yes, hybrid. It's half. It's very warm for the body. Arms are a little bit cold.
Great stuff. Well, back to the action. We've got Anna Delana of the Movistar team in the blue there. Nice set of stats there. No ride-ons for Anna right now, but please do get involved and give these riders a ride-on. Great to see some of these professional pain caves. That's a really nice backdrop there. She's looking good. These early stages of this race, as you can see, top left, nice bit of detail there. That is the climb that's approaching. That is the first climb of the day. That's the rooftop climb. It's not super steep. It gradually wends its way up. The finish line comes in sight. It's quite a complex finish. You don't actually get sight of it until about 50 meters to go. It's just round a corner, almost like a blind bend. The climb itself, 1.9 kilometers in length, an average of 2.7% gradient. So it's a quick climb. And it's worth mentioning as well, the riders will not have any power-ups at all to deploy on that climb. They're just going to be racing on pure power to weight, basically. We don't get the first ride-ons given and randomly deployed, as it were, until we cross that first arch over the top. So that's quite unusual. We don't normally see that, but great to see a nice flurry of ride-ons earlier on in this race. But I mean, looking back at the men's race, fantastic stuff, and it's going to all go well for this race as well, isn't it? It'll be interesting to see how the women really get stuck into this race, because especially with this interesting points distribution. So much on offer on the final climb, 30 points down to the 10 riders, Hannah.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And as I mentioned on the sofa to Sai, I love this points distribution and how different it is week in week. The incremental increasing of the points from 10 for the first, 20 for the second QOM, and then 30 for the final on the tempo QOM. And I think that really lends itself to teams and riders really having to think thoroughly, where are they going to make their move? You know, if you use a lot of your energy and burn a lot of matches in the earlier part of the race, are you going to be able to have enough to recover come the next QOM? Are you going to sort of start to lose distance?
Oh, the first little attack from Beth McKeever. You are quite right there, Hannah, but Beth McKeever of Movistar just drops off the front there. You can just see Ashley Moorman-Passio in those rainbow bands, that white kit. She's looks like she's dragging the bunch through. She's slowly coming into form now, as you talked about on the sofa, coming across the road and performing at this level, because there's no doubt about it, Hannah, the level of racing across both the men's and women's, season upon season, is just getting better and better and better. And there's more, people are getting more and more used to the to how to use power-ups, the actual dynamics of accelerating at the right place, using draft correctly. There's so much, the more racing we get, the more expert and sophisticated these riders become. And if you haven't raced on Zwift for a little while, it can take a few races just to get bedded in, because if you're racing regularly in the ZRL, there's a lot of, it's very, very advantageous, isn't it, to get more and more races under your belt.
It certainly is, Matt, and you know, esports is its own discipline, and you know, it takes the specialists, riders who really put a lot of effort, concentration onto the discipline, and as you say, it does take you a while just to get back into the swing of things. For these riders who perhaps they've been on IRL training camps with their teams or with themselves, they've missed a couple of rounds, perhaps you've missed a round due to illness, and just making sure that you're riding on Zwift, perhaps even not in a race, but maybe doing a workout a couple of times a week to really make sure that you are on top of it, Matt.
Indeed. Well, there you go, 1,500 metres to the top of this climb. Again, there ebbs and flows a little bit. There are a few, it drags up to a maximum of about 7%, then it drops down again. There are some flat sections, a couple of actual downhill sections within the climb. As we look at Beth McKeever, come on, get involved with Beth McKeever, please. Give us some ride-ons. One of the most aggressive, exciting riders out there. Kuczynski has gone clear. Courtney Nelson deciding to punt herself off the front. And the rider from Saris No Pins, the team that sits second overall, remember, and that gap has been shut down immediately by Kristin Kuczynski, another one of the fan favourites, one of the real big superstars of esports, of racing the ZRL. She gets straight onto the wheel, and we have a two-rider breakaway. Although saying that, to let those two riders go clear would be a little bit risky so earlier on. So that group, that little breakaway of two riders has been neutralised. As we head further up the climb, we've got around 1,100 metres to the top of this climb. And for the first time, we've seen Charlotte Berry moving to the front as well. So Charlotte Berry take a great shot of the top of this climb here. It really is. It's the biggest climb in Nyokio. It's not the biggest climb, of course, in Makuri Islands, but it's the highest point in Nyokio. We'll be dropping down the other side very shortly, but 600 metres to go to the top of this climb. No power-ups available. I wonder who's going to take this one, Hannah.
Yeah, really interesting move, and really impressed there from Charlie Berry of the Rocker Corber Collective, who was closing that gap along with Beth McKeever, and another rider who's really starting to find her feet in esports, who's been sort of getting better week on week, really starting to learn. And one thing that stands out to me with the Rocker Corber Collective, they will be racing this evening, and then tomorrow evening when we get to the community division, all 5 riders will be the sports directors and mentors for those riders who race in the community division, so they can give all those fresh hints, tips, advice to those riders racing. So a real community sense aspect to that team.
Yeah, you certainly are right. There's a lot. We've got a lot to learn there. It says Zoe Langham just rounding the corner. Langham, she went early to crest the top of that climb in first place. Liz Van Hurling is in second place for the points. First blood indeed. Well, to the team that are dominating. Wahoo Lacole first in the team time trial with that 100% record, and they have scored earlier on. Zoe Langham there with 10 points. She's absolutely flying quite clearly. Van Hooling in second, Hansen in third for Heino, Lizzie Brooke, a teammate of Zoe Langham, in second, then Mary Wilkinson, Scary Mary there in fifth, and Lizzie Brooke has gone straight over the top. So a classic move here, or an interesting textbook move from Wahoo Lacole. Is there nothing this team cannot do? Even happy to go on the offensive early on. Wahoo Lacole lead, unsurprisingly, with 12, although that move has been neutralised very, very quickly. Sarah Snowpins with 5, Heino with 3, Canyon Esports scoring a solitary point there. So what can you say? First in the team time trial, they won every single round and maximum points first time through on the first sprint of the day.
Exceptional, absolutely exceptional. The way that Wahoo Lacole are racing, and then Lizzie Brooke still picking up 2 points within the only 5 riders scored, picking up those 2 points, textbook straight over the top, using that power, using that speed, all amounted to nothing on the descent. However, you know, she's trying something. It's definitely forced a few riders to start to chase. And here at the front, Maria Marb of the Beast Mode powered by Rose. Steph Clutterbuck, great to see her back, having not raced last week in the team time trial for Movistar.
There's a few riders that got detached on that climb. It didn't look like the pace was super hard as we look at Anna Svardstrom of Team Swedish Swifters. And there's a little group 5 seconds off the back. So we have 46 riders in this front group and a clutch of riders who would need to get back as quickly as possible. But Svardstrom back in the saddle now. And the group has swelled again. We've got around 15.2 Ks is the second climb of the day, and that comes back in the countryside. We move out of Nyokio very shortly via the Umezi tunnel, and they'll actually pass through the finish line in the other direction on the way out into the countryside. We've got the 2 climbs of the Castle KOM and the Temple KOM with those gravel sectors as well. And there is a small gravel sector that we saw a couple of riders attack on, which essentially sews together these 2 parts of Makuri Islands. And if a rider's got that steamroller power up, that's when we've seen it used. It was amazing how effective it was, wasn't it?
It's really exceptional how effective it is as a power up and how much damage it does. I mean, one of the standout ones in the men's race was a Fid's attack on the climb. You know, I mentioned it before on the sofa to Sai, just less than 1,000 watts he was putting out when he made that attack. And I think he was doing it when I was sort of looking at those orange numbers on the side and seeing his power data for around 5-6 seconds, immediately gaining the gap to the peloton. And it just shows how effective it is as a power up.
Well, this is a big surprise here that Ashley Morgan-Passio has found herself detached in a group of chasers. That isn't something that we certainly expected. They've got the bunch in sight, but we know how hard it is to chase. They're at 9 seconds behind. She's got a teammate with her in Catherine Collin as well. Kirsten Poll is there. So several good riders are in that group, but certainly not what we expected. Ulrika Megan Kelly is also in the mix. So these 2, 4, 6, 7 riders need to try and get back in contact. They are closing, so please get behind these riders as best you can in a virtual sense. Of course, give them as many ride-ons as you can, but that was a bit of a surprise. But there's clearly been a bit of an issue, and perhaps because of the way that the bunch spread out on that climb, she could have got caught behind a couple of riders perhaps. The wheel's gone, and then because of the speed over the top, the gap opens up very, very quickly indeed.
Absolutely, and that climb, the rooftop QOM, goes up in steps, goes up in stages. There's no real rhythm to it. You know, it is draftable, as you say. If a few riders in front of us began to get detached from the group because of the sheer pace, you know, she's found herself in a position where she's got a lot of making up to do. At the moment, the gap is ever so slightly coming down, 8 seconds. She's got Hayley Simmons there from the Movistar E-Team, who is in that chasing group as well. An exceptional time trialist, very, very strong. And she's got a rider in there who is certainly capable of bridging the gap. I mean, one of the standout rides for me was the European Continental Qualifiers, where we saw Hayley Simmons detached from a group. Numerous occasions she put in a huge effort to get back. So at the moment, as you see, 1 second has been taken off that chase. Yo-yoing a little bit there, but for Morgan-Passio, she certainly won't go down without a fight.
She certainly won't. She'll have a good ally in Hayley Simmons. We understand actually a little bit of information. I was speaking to Hayley Simmons the other day. We were doing a feature ahead of the World Championships. She has been picked, pre-selected for the Great Britain team for the Esports Worlds in a few weeks. And the reason she was off the back in the qualifiers, she had a power outage, managed to sew it back together, and that's why she was out the back. So a bold, she's such a brave rider, and she will be a very, very important ally for the world champion in trying to get back. But they do need to get back before the next climb, before that gravel section. Still 9 seconds, and it's certainly not impossible. More and more over the lap. When we first started the ZRL, if generally a group was out the back, we'd never see them again. But more and more we do see riders almost having a bit of a second chance. But a big surprise that Mormon Passio is out the back, and it's gone out to now. Oh, it's still hovering at 11 seconds, 10 kilometers under the wheels, 23 Ks to go, and still 2 big climbs with lots of points on offer. So an interesting situation on the roads of Makuri Islands here today.
And just looking at the pace in this front group, it isn't letting up, it isn't working into the favour of that chasing group. At the moment, that the lead group at the front around 44 kilometres per hour. And so when you see Mormon Passio and Hayley Simmons as chasing group, you know, it's not working to their favour. They have got a lot of work to do. It's going to take a lot of power and cohesion between the group.
Well, we've just gone through the finish line there. In the other direction, you can see that's the 100 meters to go. So great shot there. That is a great angle, that is, isn't it? So that is the finish line. So it only comes into view with about 150 meters to go approximately, although they will see the meters dropping down in game. In terms of a visual aid, it comes very late indeed. So if you've got any chance of it, if there is, or there will be a group at the finish sprinting for something, unless there's a solo rider, but timing absolutely crucial. And that's why these recons, especially these complex finishes, we've never raced here before in this direction, although saying that we've got a couple of attackers on the front. It's Wahoo Lacole doing a classic 1-2. Lindsay Cassie and Helen O'Neill, we've seen them do this before. Happy to attack early on, and they've actually fired 2 riders over the top. They are one of the most well-drilled teams in the ZRL, and already they've got 2 riders off the front enjoying just a couple of seconds lead, but it just shows they've come out of the blocks firing on all cylinders, full of intent, full of inventiveness, and full of power as well.
And being audacious. The team, they never hold back. They're always on the front foot. They're always wanting to try and animate and make the race and put themselves in that strongest position and to try something, perhaps not wait until the Queen of the Mountain, where they know all teams are going to be attentive. They're going to be watching out for those moves, watching out for those attacks, and where the pace might be really high because they know that a breakaway is quite likely on a Queen of the Mountain. So as you say, they are, you know, inventing new things in terms of their tactics, always wanting to be on that front foot.
Yep, they're certainly playing things very differently. That move has been brought back though. It was a short little stint off the front. We've got Maud Oderman there rolling through, and that lovely new Canyon SRAM kit. 3 riders from Canyon SRAM here, Neve Bradbury, Ella Harris, both of course, well all 3 are Zwift Academy winners. Maud Oderman is the latest recipient of a professional contract with the Canyon SRAM team, and she is looking very good at the moment. There's that funky jersey, and there's 65 ride-ons, and again they're riding all together. Great to see. There is Oderman, 235 watts, nice tempo in terms of her cadence, 96 RPM there. She just used, that's Neve Bradbury, just drifted off the front. We just missed, well, I missed commentating on that little gravel section that essentially sewed these 2 bits together, but a really wise use until they get an opportunity to go through and arch again and get another power up. So great to see a couple of the Zwift Academy riders in this front group. But a bit of an update, Hannah, on that the group behind, containing Hayley Simmons and the world champion Ashley Mormon Passio, they are now languishing at 24 seconds. And I must admit, we have to be realistic. That is a lot of time to bring back. Still with 20 Ks to go, but this group is moving very swiftly.
Yeah, it's sort of yo-yoing in a direction that it's not going to be for that chasing group. They gave it the best shot. They were coming closer. The time was yo-yoing, 8 seconds, 9 seconds, back to 8 seconds. But yeah, as you say, to be realistic, it's going to be a big shout for this group to get to the front group and get themselves back into contention, especially as we start to see the pace being up to 47 kilometers per hour at the moment here in the front of the peloton.
Well, they are really moving. I mean, if you've, I mean, I know everybody who's watching who rides Zwift knows what it kind of feels like, but next time you ride on Zwift on a flat bit of road, regardless of the world, get yourself a flat bit of road, get up to 47 k's an hour and know what that feels like. The standard is so high. It really is. It blows my mind, to be honest with you, as we're looking at Eilidh Gardner here, an exceptionally gifted climber. 36 ride-ons for the British rider from Wahoo Lacol. Just sat midway through this group at the moment. We have, in terms of number, we have 45 riders. Daniela Estrate just sat at the back of that group as well. There's Eilidh Gardner not too far away. Estrate, of course, riding for Ionian. And we're looking at the full 5 riders there. Lizzie Brooke, O'Neill, Cassie, they are the riders, and Zoe Langham. I thought we'd lost Zoe then for a minute, but she was hiding behind Eilidh Gardner there. But there is Zoe Langham. I thought, no, we haven't lost Zoe, have we? But no, Zoe is there. So all 5 riders, unsurprisingly, really, they are riding immaculately, so strongly. But the next destination of note on today's race is the Castle KOM. Comes at the bottom of it, should I say, comes at 15.2 Ks. The climb itself, in terms of length, is 2.7 Ks, an average gradient of only 2.1%. But again, like the previous climb of Rooftop, there are some flat sections within it, so it doesn't really give you a sense of how steep some of the sections are. And there it is, top left. That's a little look at the top of the climb. And again, it's not gravel, it's not tarmac. It's not a wooden bridge, but it's big a cobble, so you can actually feel the difference in terms of drag when you're riding it. So if you're going for points and you do have the steamroller power up, another good place to use it.
Just like Vidar Mel in their men's race, he used it to perfection, and a climb where you have those maximum gradients of 11%, but with its twisty, turny nature, you know, another climb which is really hard to navigate, and another climb where we will probably start to see some riders unable to match the sheer pace, really start to see a select group going clear. Whether we have a breakaway before we get to that point, I do think it will be a key point within the race, especially once we get to those steeper gradients, depending as well on the power up that any rider has. Fantastic though, Matt, to see that Heino have a full complement of riders here in this front group, with Whitelaw, Lethbridge, Maura, Huback and Hansen, and we can see Maura in her pain cave there.
Steady as a rock, isn't she, Melanie Maura, the Swiss rider? I mean, it's a really good shot. Just look how still her upper body is. Great core strength there. The team that aren't, I mean, they're still in 3rd place on the general classification in the ZRL, but it is a place they are not accustomed to sitting in. But it was a solid performance in the team time trial. 2nd place for them. But as you said, they had still got 5 riders in this front group of around 45 riders. And a real study in style there from Melanie Maura. It looks like she's in a like some sort of bunker, doesn't it? You know, some sort of strange bunker. But I've no doubt that is her garage. Of course, a few little posters up. But great to see the pain caves of these riders. And we've still got the bunch all together. No attackers at the moment. You get the sense that people are waiting here. There's almost like a little bit of an entente cordiale here as they approach the second big destination of the day. It's only approaching in 2.5 kilometers, and in a very similar style as the Rooftop Castle. The actual finish line itself only comes into view with about 50 meters to go. It's right round a right-hand corner, a very complex one, so timing absolutely crucial. And I'm wondering who are going to be saving the steamroller power-ups. But there again, that's the confirmation of the gap to the chasing group on the road. Asti Mormon-Passio is certainly not giving up, but it is moving away from the world champion.
Yeah, as you just mentioned, Matt, you can almost feel the tension starting to build within this group. That's telling as well with the pace. It drops right down 34 kilometers per hour before, upwards of 45, 46 kilometers per hour. So you can really start to feel that riders are waiting. They're being patient. They don't want to put out too much energy. They want to try and save as much as possible, waiting for which rider, which team is going to start to make the first move on the approach to this Queen of the Mountain.
Yeah, Elisa Haag there for Beast Mode, powered by Rose, another popular rider. 24 ride-ons for the German. Gabriella Schumann moving to the front. Actually, Schumann starting to drag herself clear a little bit. Beth McKeever never too far away. Beth McKeever always hunting points for these intermediate sprints and intermediate QOMs. They're starting to pick things up now. There's the gradient top right of your screens, 5% now, as we've got Tammy Miller also there. Beth McKeever still dragging these riders over the top, and the ever-present Kristen Kulczynski, the American, moves to the front as well. This is where the road starts to flatten. Still got a little bit of distance towards the top of the climb, but given the pace they're running at, the shape of this peloton starting to change, and some real power spikes starting to happen now, and a little split, a little knot of riders just moving over the top as we pass through the cherry blossoms, not long to the top of this climb now, Hannah.
Yeah, you can see the gaps start to open up between these riders, and it shows the twists and turns, how much of an impact it has on these riders. Stevenson at the saddle there, who from the team of Cryo, as Kristen Kulczynski moves to the front at the moment as they go out of those twists and turns onto the more straight, flatter section. There's a slight downhill section upwards now. 5% is that gradient, and they'll start to reach those really steep gradients. 11%, don't forget, the maximum on this this approach.
Yeah, they'll be hitting the cobbles very, very shortly as well. The big, well, they're not really cobbles, they're kind of big slabs, really. You can just see they're on that now, so the resistance will change now. The rolling resistance, it'll get a little bit of additional drag, as you would in real life riding on a surface like this. So the power up that you want, if you have it, of course, there's a 1 in 3 chance of getting either power up, either the burrito today, the aero, and an aero is being used on the left hand side. It looks like Eilidh Gardner is going clear, using that aero power up. 2 of her teammates behind as well, Lindsay Cassie and Lizzie Brooke. They're having an amazing ride. Zoe Langham also accelerating up this climb now. They're looking to try and score maximum points. Wahoo Lacole are not taking any chances at all, almost in team time trial formation going over the top. Lizzie Brooke leads now. Absolutely sensational stuff. I mean, we're almost, I mean, they cannot do any wrong at all as Lizzie Brooke opens up a half a second lead coming towards the top, but she's been overhauled. I think it's Tammy Miller there for Cryo. Good move by the rider from Cryo. Looks like the rider from Cryo is going to take this one. It's going to be Tammy Miller. She's managed to move clear. Great ride. Well, that's a little bit of a surprise. Tammy Miller takes maximum points over the top there and 20 points in the bag. Louise Huback came up very, very late for Heino. That's a solid performance. Then we have Lizzie Brooke in 3rd, Zoe Langham in 4th, Belforth of Team Swedish Zwifters in 5th there, and then Eilidh Gardner, the 3rd scorer for Wahoo Lacole. So maybe they just got the timing a little bit wrong there. But, well, because they're bossing it so much. Oh, that's Courtney Nelson. We've got Nelson just going off the front, but we do have a replay of that sprint coming up. Hannah, if you just want to talk us through the dying meters as we see Courtney Nelson moving off the front.
Yeah, well, what a performance going into that for Wahoo Lacole, with all 4 riders all in a formation. But Tammy Miller, yeah, she got that timing to perfection. I think for Wahoo Lacole, you see shoulder to shoulder there. With Heino just sandwiched in. But for Wahoo Lacole, they did go quite early, and it did provide a platform for Miller to use the draft, come off the wheel, and take that speed. And I think, you know, Wahoo Lacole probably a little bit disappointed with that. They didn't get into those sort of big scoring points of either 20 or 10 points, you know, sort of settling for the lower points. I think having to perhaps recalibrate for that final Queen of the Mountain.
Yeah, definitely. Still a good performance, so they still lead the points on the night. We've got Courtney Nelson of Saris No Pins, the team, remember, that sits 2nd place in the ZRL. This is round 5. Remember, next week, it's the first time we've had a big mountain top finish. Double points on offer next week, but that's in a week's time. Today, of course, we're here in Makuri Islands on the Temples and Towers course, and that little bit of an attack has been brought back. So let's have a look at how many riders are now in this front group. There were a few casualties over the top of that climb due to the very, very quick pace that was being set. There's only, Hannah, 27 riders in this front group, the last of which is Daniela Istrati. She always sits near the back of that group, getting the maximum drag. She's so smart, Daniela Istrati. It's almost like she's riding a devil take the hindmost, just sits last woman in the group, never doing too much. It's all about efficiency, isn't it? I mean, there's no point in having a high power to weight. You want to score the lowest power to weight in terms of your average watts. It's all about being smart as well as the excitement of being aggressive. But Istrate does that very, very well. As we look at the picture-in-picture of Catherine Curry, your favourite for today.
Yeah, for Istrate, I think it's a real talent to be able to finesse, to be at the back, to hold that last position and not get dispatched from the group, to not sort of make a mistake, put a foot wrong, consequently lose the bunch. So Istrate, she does such a fine job of sitting last wheel all the time, the Romanian rider for Ionian. But yeah, as we just saw, Catherine Curry, she is my favourite. You know, she's an exceptional talent. She has that experience, both IRL, both in esports, and she's a great climber. She can get over these punchy, longer climbs, but also has an exceptional sprint. And we've seen before, haven't we, in previous editions of the ZRL, how good her timing is, her use of power up going into a finish. And I think that finish line tonight, as we saw in the men's race, is pivotal in terms of the result.
It certainly is. Well, we're on to the final categorised climb as we look at Mary Wilkinson out of the saddle. Such an accomplished rider in real life and in Zwift as well. But just double checking, yeah, 27 riders have taken it to the bottom of this climb. In terms of stats for you, the climb itself is 1.9 kilometres long. It is on gravel, so it will just feel that extra hard. It'll be very, very draggy. The average gradient 3.5%, but there are some very, very steep pitches on this climb, 11-12% in points, and very much like the other climbs, it's very, very hard to get into a rhythm. There's some quicker, flatter sections, there's some draggy bits, and then there's some real kickers, especially as we get towards the top, heading towards the centre of the giant mystical tree where the points will be awarded. Remember, it is the first 10 across the line who score points towards their team's tally tonight. 30, 20, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 3, 2 and 1. And I haven't seen the steamroller deployed just yet. When's the first one going to come? I don't think it will be very long, Hannah.
Again, the tension is starting to build in this group. You can see they're sort of almost waiting. Who's going to make that first group? Who's going to drop that steamroller power up first? And you know, it's as we start to see these gradients, already a few riders starting to find themselves in difficulty. You even see Melanie Maurer, the rider from Hino Racing, Natalie Stevenson as well, just in a slight bit of bother, along with Cecile Lejeune. And I think once we get to those steeper gradients, the combination of the sheer pace up this climb, mixed with the tense moments, is all going to be too telling.
I think that's my favourite quote from you. A slight bit of bother. There's going to be a few riders and a bit more bother as they head towards the top of this climb, Hannah. I can tell you, Beth McKeever punted herself off the front of the climb on this little steep section where the road begins to rise. Then it drops again. It's really important to keep on the power, and that's better. The last time we saw Beth McKeever picture-in-picture, there was 0 ride-ons. 102 now, triple digits for one of the most aggressive, tenacious riders out there. Never afraid to get stuck in, always on the offensive for her Movistar esports team. But it's Eiley Gardner who knows the quality of Beth McKeever for Wahoo Lacol, who's bringing her back. Steph Clutterbuck, the teammate of the rider out in front, never too far away. Cecilia Hansen, Kristin Kulczynski, Catherine Cooey, Zoe Langham, all of the cream now, Hannah, rising to the top as we head towards the last part of this climb. And this is where the gradients become very, very difficult indeed. McKeever still pressing on here, putting these riders under a lot of pressure.
And you can just start to see at the back of this bunch, gaps starting to open, riders finding themselves in such difficulty from the sheer pace that Movistar E-Team are setting. Beth McKeever, she gets her teammate Steph Clutterbuck alongside her for assistance, and they can just work together, put out a tempo that they want to, and they continue to put riders into difficulty. Stephanie Sidlick unable to match the pace. Emma Belforth, Liz Van Hooling, our stage winner from round 1 in the ZRL. And here, Steph Clutterbuck. I was going to say, Matt, sorry, this is a great performance from Clutterbuck.
It certainly is. She was sticking out 6.2 watts a kilo there. She's dropped a little bit now. 64 ride-ons by the other Movistar rider. 1.1 kilometres to go to the top, but it seems to go on interminably the top of this climb. You think you're near the top, you go over a couple of bridges, then the road kicks up again. You really do need to understand the texture of this climb. It is one of the hardest out there. It is the highest point, of course, of Makuri Island. This is the temple climb. We go through the center of the giant mystical tree over the top, waterfalls to the left-hand side. The design in game is absolutely beautiful. Of course, it's evocative of the Far East. It is absolutely spectacular. 800 meters to go to the top of this climb. Quite a tactical affair here. We saw a couple of runners have already used their steamroller power-ups, but now Clutterbuck starts to move through, and this looks like it could be an attack as well from Kristen Kulczynski, moving clear on the front, really pressing on.
Yeah, the another side of Kristen Kulczynski. She made one move. She's been very quiet since that earlier move earlier on in the race. But at the moment, she's starting to open up that gap, almost 1 second gap to Eilidh Gardner at the moment. And here is Kristen Kulczynski. She knows, she has good memories from this climb when she took her first victory in the ZRL in the final round of season 1 of the ZRL. And just over the top here, Beth McKeever with that steamroller power-up, overhauling, and just look at the flurry of steamroller power-ups, Matt.
Well, Kristen Kulczynski's just dropped through that. She hasn't got a steamroller, but the rest of the teams have. They've saved them to the top over that steep section. Look at Gardner, Brooke, McKeever, all of the riders from Wahoo Lacole, 3 of which are going clear now. Absolutely amazing team performance. Lindsay Cassie, Lizzie Brooke and Eilidh Gardner are leaving the rest behind. An absolutely perfect display of team riding. It's almost as if it's a separate Olympic sport. Team esports riding, formation riding at its finest, and they are moving clear. Lizzie Brooke, Lindsay Cassie and Eilidh Gardner, it looks like they're going to take maximum points over the top, and they do indeed. Absolutely textbook stuff. A blanket there for Wahoo Lacole, taking 30, 20 and 15 points over the top. Cecilia Hansen, the best of the rest. Zoe Langham, another scorer for Wahoo Lacole. Beth McKeever, Tammy Miller, Louise Huback, Elise Wiseman, and then Louise Van Hooling. Well, breathless stuff. What a team performance from Wahoo Lacole. They consistently are setting the bench so high. Oh, what a tally as well. 101 points. Way far in front of Hino Racing with 28. 26 there. Solid performance by Toyota. And the rest, well, they're a long way away. What a demonstration of team riding, Hannah, from Wahoo Lacole so far. 10Ks to go.
Hold on a minute whilst I just pick up my jaw off the floor. Exceptional performance there from Wahoo Lacole. 101 points, 28 points for the next team. They've just, really got a hold of this league, got a hold of this series, and going for those big points. They've tried to do the same on the second Queen of the Mountain on Castle Climb. Didn't quite work out, how they wanted to, but they did the exact same sort of tactic on this tempo climb, and they were able to succeed.
And they were pretty lucky as well. We know that these the power-ups are actually given out randomly. There's a third of a chance you can get an aero, third a burrito, but they all did get the steamroller. So there's a little bit of chance at play as well as Eilidh Gardner deploys her steamroller power-up. Of course, when you go through the arch, you get another power-up as well. So Eilidh Gardner using it quite wisely on this particular section. Eilidh Gardner, look at that face. Steely concentration there, sat in the saddle again, very, very still, jersey up-zipped, focused on the screen, headphones on, 84 ride-ons and counting. A great, really low shot as the dust kicks up on this dirt section here. 2.5 seconds lead for Eilidh Gardner, putting everybody on the back foot. And we have an elite group moving clear now. Of 7 riders. Tammy Miller is there, Beth McKeever, Cecilia Hansen, and then 4 riders from Wahoo Lacole, Gardner, Brooke, Cassie and Langham.
And the gap, sort of the group behind starting to open up, 24 seconds. So only around 9 riders who are in that sort of 8-second adrift group. But at the moment, Eilidh Gardner deploying that power up at the correct time. No point saving it until she gets to that smooth tarmac for Eilidh Gardner. She has been caught. There is a group all come back together, but she has teammates for company. She has Cecilia Hansen of Hino, the only rider represented in this front group for the team in red. Beth McKeever has managed to find herself into this group, and Tammy Miller, this must be the ride of her career so far in the ZRL.
Tammy Miller, remember, she took the second intermediate sprint on the Castle KOM, and she's clearly feeling very, very good indeed, the British rider. They've got 5 seconds over the next group, which contains some dangerous riders, though. The group behind has got Melanie Maurer, Gabriella Schumann, Elisa Haag, Courtney Nelson, Steph Klotterbuck, Liz Van Hooling, Alice Lethbridge in that particular group, and Kristen Kulczynski and Courtney Nelson. So it is a very, very strong group indeed, and they are closing the gap down. But this group out in front is going to be primarily powered by the riders from Wahoo Lacole. If I was another rider in this group, if I was Cecilia Hansen, Beth McKeither, I'd just sit back, to be perfectly honest with you. Sit back, try and sit on the wheels of the Wahoo Lacole riders, because they have, well, immensely superior numerical advantage here.
They have the strength in numbers. It's sort of up to them to force the pace to make sure that they continue to hold a gap to the chasing group behind. For the likes of Cecilia Hansen and Beth McKeever, Tammy Miller, they can just sit and follow the wheels, take the draft, save the energy, really start to think about the finish. How are they going to be able to beat Wahoo Lacole come that finish line? 7 kilometers to go. The group, though, they've all come back together at the moment, so there's a few more teams, few more riders who are now in the mix. Schumann has got back on, Catherine Curry has got back on, Liz Van Hooling too, so it's a little bit more open now. When you look down at the amount of riders, 16 riders are in this group, with Steph Clutterbuck and Cecilia Hansen not too far off the back. There you go, Steph Clutterbuck just got back into the leading group.
Indeed, well, that swells that group out in front to 18 riders, and the next group on the road, Hannah, at 29 seconds. So the winner will come from this group, but who is it going to be? Will we see another dominating display and a win from Wahoo Lacole, or will it come from elsewhere? With Catherine Curry, your favourite, will it be Beth McKeever, one of the most aggressive riders out there? Will Alice Lethbridge be able to do something from Hino Racing? Melanie Mora as well is there, as well as Louise Huback. So Hino have riders in number. I'm just trying to look to see how many riders from Canyon Esports are in the mix there. I don't think there are too many at all. Well, that is a big, big surprise. Stephanie Sidlick is chasing behind. Mary Wilkinson is in that group at 54 seconds. So the team sitting in... Oh, the team sitting, should I say, well, they are not that far overall. So Wahoo Lacole are leading. It's Saris Nopins in second place. My mistake there, but this is an exceptionally strong team and dominated by the women in blue and purple. What can they do here? 5.5 kilometers to go. Very, very shortly, we're going to be going back through the Imezi Tunnel, back into the Permanite of Neokio, and we're going to be having a sprint from this group. Or will we see a couple of riders going clear? 4 riders in this front group from Hino.
There's certainly a few teams in this group who have a few options to play. You see Saris No Pins, they've got the 3 riders in this group. Hino with the 3 riders, Movistar with 3 riders, and Wahoo Lacole with the strength in numbers. Beast Mode Power by Rose, just seen that they've got 2 riders in this leading group too, so there's plenty of option in terms of tactics. Any rider who isn't a out-and-out sprinter, who perhaps doesn't want to bank on their sprint come the finish line, might want to try and go long, try and do similar to what Kevin Bouchard-Hall did in the men's race, try and go late. He knows he can't rely on his sprint come the finish line, and there's certainly a couple of riders in here who want to try and shake things up. They certainly won't want to give Wahoo Lacole an easy run to the finish line. We know how good they are able to time those finishes to try and amass the riders up towards the front. And Zoe Langham still even be able to be on her phone at the moment, making things look easy, Matt.
Well, she might even be on TikTok there, might she? Just or maybe doing one of those, what do they call it? A reel on Instagram. Who knows what's going on? But I would imagine it is communicating. They are one of the best drilled teams out that we've seen behind the scenes. We've also had a great glimpse of a day in the life of Zoe Langham as well. Such an interesting, intriguing character. She's a medical student. She at Nottingham. Works out of Nottingham. And she's just drifting towards the back of this group there. I wonder what is being said between Eiley Gardner, Lindsay Cassie, Lizzie Brooke, and the rider that we've just been talking about, Zoe Langham. But they have a couple of other big teams in at the mix there. One of which, of course, is the team sitting in second overall. Saris No Pins, Courtney Nelson, Liz Van Hooling, and Catherine Curry are in the mix. There's some really classy riders as well as the 4 riders there from Team Hino as well. Good to see them with new riders in number. 4 riders in the mix there, as well as we look at the stats of Liz Van Hooling in a very clinical pain cave there. looks very, very neat and tidy as we're looking at Curie, Nelson, Weisman and Van Hooling. 4 riders from Saris no pins. So 4 there for Hino Racing, 4 for Saris no pins, and the entire team of Wahoo Le Col as well.
It's worth noting that the team who are sitting 4th overall in the team standings, Ionian, don't have 1 rider in this front group, which is a real surprise. We're almost always used to seeing Los Aragis, Moneli Keller, Daniela Strati in this front group, and sort of making still got representation in the front group. So a big surprise to see some teams, at the moment not fair at the during this race.
No, definitely, that is a little bit of a surprise. As you say, Ionian, very, very consistent. They sit 4th overall, as you say, and the only representative from Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024 is Kristen Kulczynski. She is sat middle of the group, number 31 there, just biding her time, 2.9 kilometers to go. No attacks as yet. It looks as if people are just keeping their powder dry, to coin that classic commentator's trophy phrase. I bet they're certainly doing that. The speed has dropped a little bit here, 37 k's an hour on the last few kilometers of the Makuri Island section before we swing back into Neokyo. We're going to go back through the Yamezi Tunnel, back in to the permanite of Neokyo. They've already been through the finish line in the reverse direction. So this is where course knowledge, recons and communication are really going to be very, very important indeed. Another rider we've not spoken too much about, who's very aggressive earlier on, Beth McKeever in this group as well. 2 riders from Movistar are in there. Also Steph Clutterbuck, I think it is, also in there as well there. She's just moving to the front. So a really interesting mix of riders, and several riders here who we know have very, very, very strong finishes indeed, Hannah.
Beth McKeever being one of those, Catherine Curie being another of those fast finishers. Be really interesting to see Louise Huback also, who is such an experienced esports racer, been around for many, many years, knows exactly how to time her sprint. Zoe Langham has really come through to the fore as a top sprinter also in the ZRL, and having won that UCI Continental qualifier for Europe in November, really sort of stamped her authority in esports. Kristen Kulczynski, though, I only have to think she's going to have to do something if she wants to try and take a victory here to give Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024 some big, big points. She's the only rider represented in this group of 18.
Yeah, she's so experienced. And again, she'd rather, I think it was a mountaintop finish. She's got a pretty decent kick. It is a part of the game that she's working on. But she's going to have to do something pretty special here as we head onto that little bit of gravel that essentially sews the 2 parts of this world together, and a couple of riders using the power up to their advantage. A couple of steamrollers are being dropped, and Courtney Nelson shoots off the front using the steamroller power up, which reduces that rolling resistance for 30 seconds. And this is the first attack, 1.3 kilometers to go now. It is around 300 meters. 300 meters to go before we go in through the tunnel, the same place as Kevin Bouchard Hall in the men's race, but that break has been neutralized. 1.1 kilometers to go. We are in the Yamezi Tunnel, and when we come out of the other side, we'll be back in Neokyo, Hannah.
Gabriela Schumann of the Beast Mode Power by Rose team, the all-German team. She goes and tries to make a break for it over the top of Courtney Nelson, Krista Kulczynski. She has half a second at the moment with 800 meters left remaining, and just take a look at the effort that it takes for Gabriela Schumann to try and gain a little bit more time, a little bit more distance on this this group behind. And I wonder if there is a chase starting to begin. Tammy Millett, they're almost about to make that junction with 600 meters to go, and Wahoo Le Col are massing themselves up towards the front as they take this left-hand turn. Steph Clutterbuck up towards the front, but where is McKeever, her teammate, the fast finisher from Movistar, the rider from Glasgow, Matt?
Well, absolutely fascinating stuff. We've got a burrito power-up being dropped on the right-hand side by Courtney Nelson. That means she's undraftable for a radius of 2.5 meters, 300 meters to go. Remember, the finish only comes in sight with about 150 meters to go, but Curry has opened things up. Huback not far behind with a burrito. Huback flying, but coming through on the outside is Catherine Cooey, Van Hooling, and it's also coming through the centre is Beth McKeever. Beth McKeever looks like she's going to take this one. Beth McKeever in the last 50 metres of the race for Movistar. Looks like she took that one. An absolutely perfectly timed sprint by the Scot. And she has taken the win ahead of Liz Van Hooling. Beth McKeever, perfect timing in the sprint there. Superb performance from one of the most aggressive riders out there. Remember, she took that 10-second time bonus last week by going for the Aqueduct sprint in the team time trial. This is Belforth, who is chasing. She's in 19th position on the road for Team Swedish Swifters, about a minute behind. But what a sensational sprint was. And at the last, Hannah, it was indeed Beth McKeever who took the win.
Incredible there from Beth McKeever. She waited. You know, there's a few riders who dropped their power-ups quite early going into that finish, and Beth McKeever, she was just able to surf those wheels, just pick them off one by one, and was able to come round. But again, it was a very long, drawn-out sprint, and you saw the gaps that had opened up come the finish line. It was a bunch sprint, or a juice bunch sprint, let's say, but there weren't many riders who could get on terms with those faster finishes.
Well, this is Stephanie Sidlick just coming through here. There's a couple. Sorry, this is Mary Wilkinson. Actually, we're seeing a few riders a little bit further down. Remember, the top 30 riders score, so it's very, very important that your riders a little bit further down the order try to score points too. It looks like Wilkinson just took that one. Vicky Whitelaw, the rider just behind Daniela Estrate there. So some real classy riders have been detached and are continuing to finish. So we've got 25 riders who have finished, 26 should I say. This is Berry, a little bit further down, also Monnalee Keller. So, well, all the 30 places have been finished now. So Anna Embring and Maren Lawson were the last two riders home to score points, as we get a look at a lovely aerial shot of Nyokio. So confirmation of the finish in the women's race here in round 5. Beth McKeever takes the win for a Movistar e-racing team. Liz Van Hooling in second, Tammy Miller in third. Great ride by the rider from Cryo there. Louise Huback in fourth for Heino. Also fifth place for Cecilia Hansen in Heino. After a great start in amassing points, the first rider home for Wahoo Lacole was Lizzie Brook. Kriskin Kocinski will be pretty happy, I'd imagine, sprinting to 7th there. Catherine Curry in 8th for Sarah Snowpins. Alice Lethbridge there in 9th for Heino. And running out our top 10, Zoe Langham. Looking a little bit further down, we have Elisa Hag, Steph Clutterbuck, Eiley Gardner, Elena Wiseman, Melanie Mora, Courtney Nelson, Gabriella Schumann, Lindsay Cassie, and then 19th and 20th for Team Swedish Swifters, Emma Belforth and Nelly Larsson. Well, breathless stuff. Wonderful sprint. Let's break that down and have another little look at the slow motion replay. This was the last few hundred meters here. And just look at the riders from Sarah Snowpins going very, very early indeed. Beth McKeever is currently in 4th place here, right on the wheel. She doesn't have a power up either. That makes it even more extraordinary. There's a burrito being dropped as well. And this is where McKeever comes right out of the slipstream, straight in front here. But it's very, very late. Only about 30 meters to go does she go around Liz Van Hooling. And in the end, she gets it by 3 or 4 lengths. Superbly timed sprint by the Scottish rider. That would be a very, very popular victory indeed for the rider from Movistar. So a reminder, McKeever from Van Hooling and Tammy Miller in 3rd place. Lots and lots to talk about. Some breathless racing here in round 5 of the Zwift Racing League. But for now, from me, it's back to the studio with Hannah and Simon.
Thank you very much, Matt. That was some race. As you say, an awful lot to unpack there. First of all, congratulations to Beth McKeever. That was some finish, particularly delivering a sprint win with no power-up. Surrounded by a sea of aero power-ups and burritos, she delivered with a victory without one, which is remarkable. Prior to that, we also saw what Matt described as team esports formation riding, which I can only agree with. Wahoo Lacole dominating out on the course, but not in the finish. So whereas they'd got 100 points in the intermediate sprints, we don't know quite what they managed to salvage at the end. It was not the kind of finish that we're normally used to from them. Hannah, you have teleported back to the sofa, fresh from the commentary booth. What did you make of that? Firstly, let's go with Beth McKeever and her sprint.
Exceptional. I can't even get my words out. Yeah, exceptional. I think the way she times her sprint, as you just mentioned there. She didn't even have a power-up. You know, against all those riders who had a burrito. Look at the amount of aero power-ups here, and you see where Beth McKeever had come from, and the gaps did start to open up. It was such a fast, powerful sprint, and Beth McKeever, she does have that immense kick, and you know, really high watts come the end of a race. Exceptional.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I noticed in the individual results that the Wahoo Cole riders that were there had considerably higher average powers than everyone else, showing that they had done a lot of work. Unsurprising when you saw what they did over the first KOM, what they did over the second. It was almost a clean sweep there, they perhaps mistimed it slightly, and then a clean sweep over the Temple QOM. And so do you think perhaps they just ran out of gas a little bit come the finish?
Yeah, perhaps, but I think they knew how important those Queen of the Mountains were, especially the second Queen of the Mountain and the third, because of the points were really heavily weighted towards those two Queen of the Mountains. And they didn't quite get it right, perhaps the way they wanted to on the castle climb, but the temple climb, they certainly got that right. And it was a wonderful performance. It just such a brilliant display of teamwork to see what they had done there.
Well, yeah. Should we see what the results are then? Because, well, did they deliver? Oh, my word. Yes, they did. Look at that. First place, Wahoo Cole, 178 points. Team Hino in second. They also had 4 riders in that final split. Saris Nopins, another team with 4 riders in that final split with 107 points. Movistar E-Team, thanks largely, you'd think, to McKeever's impressive individual win in 4th place. Toyota Cryo RDT in 5th with 72 points. And then dropping down from there, we've got to say, not a great night from the Canyon SRAM team again, or indeed Rocacorba Collective. I hate to say it, because the GCN curse has sort of almost been lying dormant for a while. But anyway, sorry, we'll come back to that in a second. We've got the series standing points there. Wahoo Cole, dominant as ever. Look at that, 5 wins out of 5, a maximum of 100 points. Saris Nopins, still only 10 points behind, so really, really good, consistent series from them. Hino, defending champions, in 3rd with 88 points, so still very tight between 2nd and 3rd. Movistar a little bit further adrift, at 10 points back. Aeonian, who didn't have a good round tonight, or indeed last week either, dropping to 5th place there. So yeah, a lot to unpack. I'd started talking about Ashley Moorman-Passio and the curse of GCN. We were tipping her for the win. She got unceremoniously dropped on the descent of the first QOM. What do you think was happening there? Perhaps just a little bit caught out, do you think, for the ferocious pace?
Definitely caught out. I mean, as we know, when you go into the Super Tuck, if you're not on the gas when you come out of the Super Tuck, and the other riders are, and they've already started to put the pressure down, they've already started to build that speed, you can be caught out, and it's exceptionally hard to get yourself back into terms with that group in front. And at one point, it was looking like they could potentially do it on this track section. She had Hayley Simmons for company, she had 2 teammates from the Rocacorba Collective for company, and it was yo-yoing ever so slightly, that time gap, but in the end it wasn't to be, and it just shows how difficult it is to bring yourself back.
Yeah, maybe the curse of the rainbow jersey lives on in Zwift. We'll find out in a couple of weeks for the Esports World Championships, and also for next week, which we'll come on to shortly. Let's go back and try and dissect the Wahoo Cole team ride then, because as we said, they attacked this race from the gun, taking all 3 QOMs. I mean, that shows confidence, doesn't it, in their ability to really rip it up like they did?
Yeah, I mean, they got that second one slightly wrong, where Tammy Miller had rolled them over the top of the castle climb, and then they had one of the Hino riders who took the 2nd place. So it didn't go all their way. They put in a lot of effort to try and get that clean sweep in that castle climb Queen of the Mountain, but you know, they tried, and even like Matt was saying in the commentary, they tried to attack, and they did attack, and they got a slight gap before we even got to the Queen of the Mountains or any of the standout points on the course. which none of the other teams were sort of willing to do. I think everyone was really holding the cards close to the chest tonight.
Yeah. Now, one thing I was particularly interested to see is when they had 4 riders out of the first 5 going over that Temple QOM, I was thinking, right, well, you know, this is it now. You got 4 riders in a group of 5. You ride, you keep it away, and then that's it. You know, race over effectively. But they didn't seem to grab the race by the scruff of the neck. They allowed that big group to come back to them. Do you think they'll be thinking of that as a mistake in hindsight?
Yeah, I'm wondering how much that effort over the top of and to make sure that they gained the points and the maximum points on the Temple Queen of the Mountain, how much that took out of them. Because, as you say, you know, they have shown how good they are at team time trial, and you would have thought they would have got together, communicated to each other, let's get into formation. We've only got 2 or 3 other riders from a different team. It doesn't matter if they sit on, because the most important for us is to gain max points come the finish line. The only thing I can think of is because they had sort of 9-10 kilometres from the top of that climb, it is still a long way to be out front. And if it does all come back together in the final kilometre, and they've put all that effort in to try and stay away from that chasing group, and it doesn't come their way, you know, they still don't have that firepower in the legs to challenge.
Yeah, potentially. I thought it was interesting though, I think it was Gardner used her steamroller power up and dropped everyone. So she was on her own at one point. It almost felt like there was a bit of miscommunication perhaps about, right, let's ride now. And then maybe, as you say, the other riders didn't quite have the legs. They'd perhaps gone a bit too deep over the top.
Yeah,
there.
Equally, there was no other point on the course where she could have used that power up, and that was the last bit of gravel section on the course. You know, it would have made no difference if she was to use it on the tarmac or going into that finish. So for Gardner, perhaps it was a now or never. I either use this power up or I keep it back and I don't use it. So I think they tried something, it didn't quite pay off, didn't go the way that they planned, but still coming out on top.
Yeah, and I've got to say as well, hats off to Zoe Langham. Not only was she up there in the mix, all the sprint points and the QOMs, she also was able to use her phone in the lead-in to that final sprint, I noticed. Now, if I've been on Zwift for 30 minutes, my phone doesn't work because I'm too covered in sweat. So to be able to have the breath in your body, plus not being so sweaty, I think that's remarkable. Fair play to her.
Definitely, and I think holding such poise within, I mean, it's just incredible. I think some of these riders, they must be in such good form to be able to do something like that. As you say, I mean, even just the sweat dripping off your brow and then on your hands. I mean, yeah, incredible.
It is class, isn't it? Now, we perhaps slightly cursed Ashley Moorman-Passio.
We did.
Fortunately, Kristen Kulczynski, whilst she didn't dominate on this course like she did when it was a summit finish, she was well up there, wasn't she, at the sharp end of that QOM. She didn't have a steamroller power up by the look of it, which I think probably made all the difference in whether you were able to make that front split or not. But she was there in the mix, and actually she finished it off. That was a really good finish for her, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, very, very good finish for her. And you know, as we say, these power ups, they come at random. You have a third chance of getting each of them, and tonight just didn't play into the hands in terms of luck for Kristen Kulczynski to try and get that power up. You know, it was quite amazing actually that all of the Wahoo Cole riders had the steamroller power up going into that Temple Queen of the Mountain. But yeah, as you say, you know, despite that exceptional finish from Kristen Kulczynski.
Yeah, and we've also got to give credit, haven't we, to Heino and Saris Nopins, because both of those teams also had strength in numbers in that final split, didn't they? So 4 from Heino, 4 from Saris Nopins. So real strength and depth for those 2 teams.
Really impressive, and I think this is where we start to see Heino come into their own on a course like this where it's very, very difficult, it's hard, it's quite tactical, they've got that elevation, it's really grippy and really, you know, sort of leg draining, this style of course, because of the sheer pace, because of the climbs. There's no real rhythm in the climbs either. So it really played into their hands tonight. Perhaps not what we've seen in previous weeks. They have been consistent nevertheless.
Yeah. Do you think we're seeing a slightly different style of racing emerge in the ZRL Premier Division, given that Heino were so dominant and now they seem a little bit like diesel engines, like there or thereabouts, incredibly strong, but perhaps not quite having the punch of some of the other riders?
I do. I mean, we were speaking about it before the show of how exciting the first round was of this season, when you had the intermediate sprints sort of in very quick succession after each other. And I think for this season, in the way that the points are distributed, the way that the gap between the intermediates and the Queen of the Mountains really lends itself to a rider who is able to recover, to be high into that red zone, recover, used to that intensity. And as you say, I think Hino are real sort of diesel engines who, they excel on tonight's course, and they're onto the podium in the overall standings.
Yeah, well, one rider who definitely excelled on tonight's course is Tammy Miller, who is joining us now, I believe, fresh from a race. Tammy, hello. Thank you very much for joining us. So you were second in one of the QOMs and also third on the night as well. So a really strong ride. What was it like out there? I mean, it looked savage from where I was sat.
It was so savage. It was kind of like the 3 climbs were so tough. It was full gas. I mean, for me, it was kind of trying to keep up with the pure climbers, which I'm definitely not. And then just have whatever I had left at the end for the sprint, which was not a lot. But yeah, it felt really good. Team did really well. Really happy.
Great stuff. And so what were your tactics going into it then? So that second on the QOM shows that you were in the hunt for the intermediate sprints, I guess.
I wouldn't say that's what we went out for. I just found myself in a really good position coming up to the banner. So I just kind of pushed that a little bit right at the end. And yeah, it kind of paid off, I guess.
Yeah, well, it sure did. And coming into the finish, that looked like a tough one to read. Beth McKeever sort of coming from behind. Where were you planning on launching your sprint from? And did you have to modify your tactics given how the race was panning out?
I mean, the finish was kind of a little bit sooner than we expected. And I found myself slightly, I came from behind anyway. And I probably should have launched a little bit sooner because I still had a little bit left at the end. And I think Beth's always going to out-sprint me. So it was just kind of fighting and giving whatever I had to not get overtaken right at the end.
Great stuff. Well, Tammy, thank you very much for joining us, and have a great week training, resting up before the next and final round. Well, that was, great to talk to her. And it did sound like perhaps they'd misjudged the finish then. Do you think that was the same for some of the other riders?
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Saying that the finish came sooner than expected, and I think perhaps though that's where those recons come into, the course recons, sort of dialing in, knowing exactly where to open up your sprint, coming into that finish, exactly sort of perhaps finding a marker at the side of the road in that lead in, and knowing exactly, well, this is where I'm going to open up. I know my capabilities as a rider. I know how long I can keep that max power as high as possible, and to really get the jump on the other riders.
Yeah, well, we have Beth McKeever on the line very soon, I believe. So we're going to be able to find out from her exactly what happened in the finish. Here she is indeed. Beth, hello and congratulations. What a fantastic victory that was for you on the night individually, with no power-up as well.
Yeah, I had a steamroller, unfortunately, so I had to use that on the gravel section, so had nothing but the legs.
Well, fair play to you. Now, we've just been hearing from Tammy Miller, who finished third. She was saying the finish came upon her a little bit sooner than she expected. What was it from your perspective? I mean, it looked like, from my perspective, that you timed your sprint perfectly. Clearly it went as planned, but was it the sprint that you were expecting at the end of that race?
Yeah, it was quite quick, you know, after we kind of came out off the little gravel section, it came on us pretty quickly and the group was moving really fast. I was just trying to keep an eye on the kilometres we had to go, and then just, tried to follow when everyone else went.
So does that mean that you didn't have a point in the road where you were going to launch from? It was just reading it as it happened?
Yeah, I usually just kind of read it when it happens, see when I see everybody else's numbers go up, and then just, go for it then. You don't want to go too soon because then you might just, you end up leading it out, and then that just, no point in that.
No. And how was it up that final QOM then, the temple climb? It looked like it split to bits. Were you trying to play it cool in the chasing group, or were you riding yourself?
Yeah, it was pretty savage, to be honest. I didn't really expect to do so well in that race. I thought that it would break up a lot more. But yeah, it ended up just breaking up a little bit, and then I think because there was riders all over the place, a group came together again, which was good for me in the end.
It absolutely was. Well, thank you very much for talking to us about it, and congratulations again on a fantastic sprint.
Thank you.
Well, there we go then. So clearly something but natural when it comes to sprinting, reading it as it happens, like the Mark Cavendish of the Zwift world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think key thing for Beth, that she just reads the race as it comes. She's ready to sort of launch her powerful sprint, powerful attack when needed. Interesting though that she was on that split on the climb, having to work herself back on into the group.
Yeah, absolutely. Right then, well, let's look ahead then to next week, shall we? The 6th and final round, the decider, and it is going to be something of a monster. Climbers Gambit in Watopia, 28 kilometres long, but 670 metres of elevation, some of which comes in Titans Grove. Pretty much all of it comes in the final epic KOM reverse summit finish. It's going to be awesome, isn't it? There's also a lot to talk about with the points on offer, because there are truckloads, basically. So there's double points on offer at the finish, but most intriguingly, when I was looking at the road book, you've actually got series points on offer at the summit of the final climb. So the race doesn't finish at the very summit. There's a flat finish. But then there's going to be 3, 2 and 1 series points available for the first to the top of the climb, which potentially, given how close it is, could prove really quite decisive, couldn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think with the double points come the finish line for the riders, it's going to be so difficult, but also really intriguing to know how they're going to play it out. Who's going to attack? Are they just going to go throw it all in and try and sort of overhaul and get themselves into that winning position? But as you say, some of the positions in the team overall standings are so close, especially the podium placings. I think that's where we're really going to see a battle between those teams. They're all going to want those points.
Yeah.
It'll be vital.
Now, I feel like it's a course for Ashley Moore-Pasio to make amends, but on the basis of tonight, she's actually got to get to the bottom of that final climb with the bunch. Can she do it? Do you think it's just a blip this evening?
Yeah, I mean, as we said before, she's probably going through a training phase, really looking towards those Esports World Championships at the end of February to defend the rainbow stripes. If any course was really going to suit her sort of out and out, it is going to be next week. Although there was a lot of elevation and climbing tonight, it wasn't necessarily the perfect course for Moore-Pasio. I just know that she's been spending a lot of time on Zwift, riding, really getting herself back into it after being ill a few weeks ago. So, yeah, certainly next week, if it's going to be a course for her, it's the Climbers Gambit.
Absolutely. And then for next Esports, powered by Insured, and also Wahoo Nicole on the women's side of things, dominant this season. They've both got comfortable leads in the overall, but it's a very, very different kind of race next week, isn't it? And so are they capable of doing it, delivering on a summit finish? Again,
with the different types of courses we've had and the variety that we've had, it's thrown us into this unknown, I think, for the riders as well. Wahoo Nicole, I'm sure they're confident of what they're capable of. I'm sure they all know what they're capable of. On the Wahoo Nicole side, they've got Eiley Gardner, who's an exceptional climber. She's the world record holder for Everesting, so that just gives you an indication of how good she is at climbing. She's a very slight rider. She's excels on that type of climb. Similarly with the next Esports, we've seen them in previous seasons where they've gone well on a climbing course. They said one of their riders tonight was ill. Hopefully he can overcome that and won't be affected too much by it next week.
Absolutely. Well, we don't have too long to wait now, do we? So, Hannah, until next Monday night, we shall see you there. Thank you very much to everyone for joining us. We have two clear leaders at the top of the standings, Next Esports and also Wahoo Nicole. But as we've just heard, next week's course is very, very different. So there are no guarantees as to who is going to clinch Season 2 of the ZRL Premier Division. Join us here next Monday, same time, same place.